Sure, I don't want to look crazy. Don't let me look cray cray, right? Can't let me look crazy.
Good evening, and welcome to this regular meeting of the Northside Board of Trustees. Before calling this meeting to order, the board would like to take just a moment to briefly review some of the rules for conducting our meeting. The order of business for this meeting is set out in the agenda. One item that you may notice on the agenda is the consent agenda. This item includes items that are considered routine and/or are of a recurring nature. All the items listed under the consent agenda will be acted upon in one motion. If there is a consent agenda item which anyone here would like to address, please sign up to speak to that item, and we will pull it from consent motion and discuss it separately. The purpose of our meeting is to conduct board business, and for that reason, it is held in public. It's not a public forum, however, we do provide the opportunity for audience participation. If there's anyone here who would like to address the board during an agenda item or citizens to be heard portion of the agenda, we ask that you please register on the sign-up sheet located at the entrance to this room. So this is so we don't overlook anyone who would like to speak to the board. We will review the rules for addressing the board later in the meeting. Is there anyone here who would like to sign up to an agenda item and has not done so? Okay, good. One announcement I would like to make too, because of, we post this board meeting in several different places, and one area of communication had an incorrect location, or people may have been misdirected to NAC. So we do have some officers over there that if anybody shows up there, they're directing them back to this board meeting. So if in fact they do come in late from NAC, they will be able to sign in at the back of the room. So if no one here would like to sign up that hasn't already done so, the meeting will be officially called to order. Please stand and bow your heads as Trustee Corinne Saldana leads us in the invocation and pledges of allegiance.
Almighty and merciful God, we ask your guidance and blessings upon this board, students, parents, patrons, teachers, and administrators, as we are assembled here this evening in the common pursuit of this great nation's wealth, our children. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one nation, under God, one and indivisible.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Saldana. As y'all may notice, we have a couple board members that are unable to join us today, and our superintendent is unable to be here in person with us today, but he will be joining us on Zoom, and I'm sure he's listening right now. And to that point, the first item on the agenda is our superintendent's report. So, Dr. Woods, if you're there, do you have there you go. Good evening.
Start by apologizing for not being there, frankly, but for health reasons, just didn't think it was in the best interest of anybody, especially the teachers who we recognized tonight and the staff who were there, and the families, and of course our board members to be there physically. So appreciate the opportunity to give a brief report tonight. And I'll start with what is obviously very somber news and a little bit about how we have been helping the people in Uvalde. The last time this board met for a regular meeting was May the 24th. That was the day of the mass shooting at Cobb Elementary in Uvalde. And I'll just say that we have been able to lean in to that situation quite a bit and help Dr. Harrell, who leads that district, and his board and that community start to begin to move past that incident, hopefully start to heal. And I'll just say that I think I represent all of the dozens of Northside staff who have volunteered their time to be in and assist in Uvalde, that we are honored to do so. Since we met in May, one more safety-related item. While we usually gloss over these items because they've become so much the norm in Northside, tonight on our consent agenda, we do have agenda item to enhance access control and replace aging surveillance cameras on many campuses. This work has become the norm, as most staff know, and it will be further enhanced in the future with the successful passage of Bond 2022. Since that May meeting, we've graduated right at 7,000 NISD seniors into the next phase of their lives, and we wish them well and know that we've done the very best we could to prepare them for a bright future. Tonight, we bring among a number of items for the board's consideration two of the most significant elements in building a budget, growth and improvement, and its much anticipated cousin, compensation. Growth and improvement serves the purpose of adding or enhancing programs that we believe are good for children, such as social and emotional learning, full-day pre-K, STEM labs in our elementary schools. It also patches holes where gaps in staffing have hurt our ability to operate efficiently. Compensation obviously serves in a very different purpose. It recognizes the value of our staff and serves as a retention mechanism, which I don't have to tell anybody in that room is a challenge for schools these days. While the compensation proposal is less than what we would like, I think that's usually the case. It is what we can afford at this time. Combined together, growth and improvement and compensation carry us closer to the final budget adoption for the 22-23 school year. And I'll say that for trustees and me and Dr. Barajas and his staff, this is a many month process that is beginning to come to an end. We're fortunate now to have two state championship sports teams in Northside this year. In addition to Brandeis Volleyball, who we recognized in the winter, we now have O'Connor Softball, who brought home the state championship. It was actually the day they won the state championship, the day before they graduated, that O'Connor graduated. And it was really nice to have the senior members of the team recognized at their graduation just one day after they won it all. We obviously invited them to be with us tonight, but many had a conflict with, imagine that, a softball tournament out of state. And so we will make efforts to reschedule and get them in front of the board for recognition as soon as possible. And that, Ms. Freeman, concludes Superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Woods. Next item on the agenda is board members' report. Are there any board members that have anything for us tonight? Mr. Lopez.
Thank you. Just wanted to comment on the graduation for this past year. You know, we were able to graduate, several hundred students, and wanted to comment on some of the things that we heard from our valedictorians and our salutatorians, and it was always very inspiring to me to hear some of the students and how they talked about their year and that year of their senior year, but the years in education that they had from elementary school all the way up to high school. And what was inspiring to me was that, and this is where I kind of look at it and say, this is where our teachers, our administrators, we did a good job because a lot of the comments that came from the salutatorians and the valedictorians were of encouragement, and they understood what happened these past 2 years. They understood that they had to deal with it, and there was some loss. But what they also understood was that they had to move forward, and in order that in life there were going to be bumps in the road. And so it was really encouraging to hear, and I was enlightened by them, and just how they were able to move on and say, you know what, just stand up and get on and continue to move on, because there's going to be things that are going to happen. So I was really proud to hear that. And I give that credit to those administrators, to those teachers, because those were the ones that they were appreciating the most. Those were the ones that had an impact in their lives. So it was really great to hear that and see that. And it just made me proud to say that, you know what, we did do a good job. So that was one of them. And congratulations to O'Connor and Brandeis on their accomplishments. That's great. Another thing I wanted to emphasize, and one of the things that I attended this past Friday, it's called the Frozen Junior, and this is the Rising Star program. It's a theater arts program that the Fine Arts puts on, and these are for our Title I campuses. And I was so impressed to see the students and the participation level, and then just even their acting ability, because they were not only just acting, they were singing. So it was really great to see that, and to see how long that program has been coming. I think it's been going on for 10 years or 11 years. So I wanted to thank the staff that were a part of that, and especially the director, Kirk Logan. He was the he was yeah, he was from Holmes, exactly. And so this production was put on by a lot of our theater teachers in high school, and so the Kirk Logan was a director. Elizabeth Eloise Lopez from Marshall, Keith from Clark, Shea from Jefferson, Michael from J in Science and Engineering, Nora from J, Cody from Warren, Haley from was an intern, and then Michael Ariano from O'Connor, and then Gene from Conley Middle School. So those guys were really great and encouraging and working with the students, and they only had 2 weeks to do this production, so it was really great to see that. But I also wanted to recognize the cast. The cast of the show was really great. They did their singing, like I said, they're singing and dancing, and that's very hard to do. So wanted to say thank you for their job, the teachers that did this, and also as our fine arts department, James Machoka. So proud of the fine arts department. So, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Ms. Saldana?
Gerald, just to say something about that, I was not able to go to the production because we had a building committee meeting that day at the same identical time. But I invited some young relatives of ours. After the show, they called me and they said it was incredible. They could not get over the costumes and the fact that these young kids had done such a good job. They were so excited that I had told them about it, and they went to it. And they were two little girls who love Frozen, so it was a fun day for them. I attended the TASBY conference for 3 days a couple of weeks ago here in San Antonio, and that's the Texas Association of School Boards conference. And it was really interesting this year. Last year was my first year. This year, now that I'm a little bit more into it, I really enjoyed it a whole lot more and learned a lot more. So that was good. And then graduation, oh my gosh, as a high school principal, that was my favorite day of the year because I got to shake every single hand that went through. And so congratulations to all the high school principals. Y'all did a great job. It was awesome. And then we also attended, several of us attended the Coalition of School Boards meeting last week. And that was interesting to hear from all the different school boards in San Antonio and to see what's going on. We were concerned about the charter schools, and we had a good discussion about that and recruiting the different school districts. So that was an interesting meeting. And Bobby, we thank you for your leadership in that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Saldana. Anyone else?
Oh, did I hit the wrong one? Okay, Karen.
Ms. Chumley?
I'm off to an auspicious
All right.
start here.
All right, the lights are working today, though.
I hit the wrong button. Just a couple of things. I wanted to do a shout out to all of our retirees. And I know that we've been able to make some of the retirement receptions, but I just want to say thank you to all of our staff that is retiring, and that how much we very much appreciate them and how much we are going to miss them. It's starting to, from being here for so long, I'm not seeing all these familiar faces anymore, and it's getting really sad. But I'm very excited for them because not one of them was tearful. Are saying they think they may be making a bad decision. They all were ready to go. So I just wish them all the very best of luck. And what I found, though it didn't work for me, but I'm hoping that will come, is that we'll see them about a month from now and they'll look 10 years younger. So anyway, just, Patty Hill, Daryl Hemphill, Shelley, which is Stan's admin, Assistant Chief Villarreal, Rebecca Barron Flores, and all of the others that have retired, just wishing them the very, very best of luck. Gerald, I agree with you. Graduations were wonderful. And I remember when I first got on the board, and principals were so worried about because the big thing when I first got on the board was that kids liked to blow up beach balls. And so I remember principals were so worried about a beach ball was coming. And I felt so bad for our principals because I thought, here, you're at the mercy of all of these 17, 18-year-olds. I thought there is no telling. But I just thought our principals did a great job. And it was just so nice to be back. I mean, we were in person last year, but it was so nice to be able to shake hands and say hello. And, that I think that we can get discouraged throughout the year, but then when we see graduation and all these wonderful kids and how successful they're going to be, it makes all of it worthwhile. It's just getting to that point. And then the other thing, Bobby, I wanted to thank you because you were the one who really started and has continued to really push the Bexar County Coalition. And, sometimes I think that when we hear about other school boards and challenges that other school boards, other school districts are having, that, and I think the newspaper does this too, you lose sight of the actual individuals that are part of that. And what I have found from going to the Bexar County School Board Coalition is that, our fellow trustees in other school districts care about kids and they want to do the best things for kids. And sometimes it's just circumstances that make it harder than other school districts. But I have learned that through that. And I think it's a really good thing for us to know when you read about or hear about another school district or school board that may be struggling, that these are all volunteers too. And they're trying the best they can to take care of kids. And I think that most of them are extremely sincere about that. And then, so the missions part of our meeting was the missions, our baseball team, recognizes educators. And so, and now I've gone completely blank with my name. Yes, Amanda.
Are you talking about the lady?
Let me look. Yeah, Amanda. No, it was Melinda. I'm sorry, guys. Hang on just a minute because I want to give her recognition. I think it was on Brian's text. Hang on. Yes, Melinda. Okay. So anyway, so we nominated 3 of our Northside staff, and it's Valerie Sisk, Mike Burns, and Mike Burns is a CTE teacher at Harlan, and Melinda Valdez, who is a STEM teacher at Beard. And then Valerie Sisk was the principal at Warren and has moved into a central office position. Anyway, I'm hoping they will be selected, but I did just want to call out that hopefully they will be recognized at a missions game so we can all go watch baseball during that time. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chumley. Mr. Blunt?
Good. First, let me thank our board for one. We had very, very good attendance and active participation during that coalition meeting that our other two trustees have talked about. Southside was actually the host, and like Melissa indicated, I think it was great just to meet the Southside and other. We had about 11 districts represented, more than 12 or 13 districts represented, but it's just great to meet them individually outside of. And Melissa gave a great description, so we're very pleased. And by the way, we've got meetings the next 3 weeks. I'll let y'all know a little bit more about that later. Anyways. Also in the Summer Leadership Institute, I was fortunate to be a presenter in 2 different roles. In my role as the Executive Vice President for the Texas Caucus of Black School Board Members, to present a state sort of analysis of different gaps and some other things. And also my Northside role is sort of showing how we do some solutions to some of the problems that have been identified. So I leave for Fort Worth tomorrow, so I'll be doing the presentation again up there. And the last one, and I hadn't thought about till y'all mentioned, I think everybody on the board knows I definitely enjoyed graduation. I had 8 of my players from different high school, and about 3 or 4 of them I've been coaching for 10 years. So it was an honor to, one, give them, for the time we've been together, and believe me, we're a year-round team too, one, to be able to get a diploma. But the other thing, which is really important, I think Gerald hit on, just to see their pride that they had in Northside through all the years, because I know all the little secrets out there, but no comment on that from them. But nevertheless, it was just great to see. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blunt. My fellow trustees have given a great synopsis as to what we've been spending our free time doing the last month. But I will say something about graduation. I know a lot of people, I know I have friends in other school districts, they don't have as many graduations as we do. We have 12. And they would always say, do you really go to all those graduations? And I will tell you, I to my fellow board members, I really appreciate the dedication that we have to graduation, and it's more than dedication. It's the fact that we want to go and we want to be there. We've kind of set the standard amongst us, and it's one of the greatest things that we're able to do throughout the year, and that is to give a child their diploma. There's a real sense of pride, and gives us a lot of hope. And to see their smiling faces, and many of them are very nervous just to even walk across the stage. But it's wonderful to be able to do that, and I wish everybody had that opportunity. And it's a pleasure to be part of all of those graduations. Ms. Chumley?
Karen, I forgot one thing, and I know you hate being bragged about, but I'm going to brag about you anyway. So one of the was it valedictorian?
Yeah,
One of the valedictorians was Bobby's student, soccer player.
Great player, but yeah.
Great player. Anyway, in her speech, she talked about how important it was to have a mentor to help her and support her, and that mentor was Mr. Blunt. It made us all real teary-eyed on the stage. But I just have not, in all the years as a trustee, I have not ever been where a student talks so much about a mentee and an individual that made such a difference in their life as this young woman did.
Nice.
So
Appreciate that.
congratulations.
Thank you.
It was very nice. Thank you, Ms. Chumley. Okay, if that's it, next item on the agenda is recognitions. So Ms. Falconberry, will you come down here? Okay, we have a couple recognitions. Trustees?
Oh.
I am such a wuss.
It's okay. We all understand.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. I am burning up in here. Yeah, Ray, is there anything we can do to get this air down?
They are on it, Ms. Chumley, so hopefully within 20 minutes you'll feel a difference.
We miss Brian's temperature. No, he always keeps it cold.
Good evening, President Freeman and the board, Freedom and the board. My name is Janice Jordan, and tonight it's my honor to introduce another one of our rock star teachers in Northside, Elena Chambers. She is the brand new and first ever department coordinator of world languages at Sotomayor High School, and was selected as the 21-22 Languages Other Than English Teacher of the Year for Region 20. Although new to Sotomayor, she is not new to Northside. She first joined us as an AP Spanish teacher in the fall of 2006 at Holmes High School and became the LOTE department coordinator in 2010. She served as a mentor and advisor for the Rotary Interact Club, sponsored by the Spanish Honor Society, and consistently tutored, advised, and assisted students every day, no matter what time of the day or week. Elena was once a struggling student herself who was inspired to become a teacher by a very special ESL teacher. According to one of Elena's former students, now a graduate student in the neuroscience PhD program at Columbia University, she says, it was through Senora Chambers that she realized that being able to serve the community was a gift rather than an obligation. Senora Chambers cheered me on even when I did not believe in myself. She always stood up for me. She granted me countless opportunities for growth intellectually and personally, and instilled in me a service-based mindset, always emphasizing the importance of giving back to the community. So it is my pleasure to present Elena Chambers, our 21-22 Languages Other Than English Teacher of the Year. We're here with Elena, family and friends. Would you stand so we can recognize you as well? Would you stay up here? Would your girls like to come in the picture? I know.
Good evening. My name is Ray Galindo, Deputy Superintendent for Administration and the AC guy. It's going to work, I promise. It is my pleasure to introduce our next honoree. This gentleman is certainly no stranger to the board. Master Sergeant George Hickman, an aerospace science instructor at Harlan High School, is the recipient of the 2022 overall Air Force Junior ROTC Outstanding Instructor of the Year Award presented by the Department of the Air Force Education and Training Command. Those receiving this award represent the best of the blue in the Air Force Junior ROTC. Through this award, recipients represent the highest examples of the Air Force core values. Master Sergeant Hickman is one of the just two in the state to receive this award. As I mentioned earlier, George has been a longtime member of the Northside family. He first came to us 22 years ago, first joining us as an instructor at John Jay High School in 2000. Then moving to Stevens High School in 2005 when we opened that campus, and then moving to Harlan High School in 2017. Under his leadership, the Harlan unit has grown more than 200%. And I might add, he stepped up and led efforts to maintain cadet operations at Clark High School this year due to an unforeseen circumstance and a lack of instructor availability on that campus. Master Sergeant Hickman served the United States Air Force with distinction for 22 years and was awarded with the Meritorious Service Medal 3 times and the Air Force Accommodation for Exceptional Accomplishments. He touched the lives of thousands of airmen while serving as a military training instructor in the Air Force and has continued to touch lives of hundreds of ROTC cadets in Northside. It is no wonder why he is being honored here tonight. Besides being the best of the blue for the Air Force, he's also the best of the Northside blue. So please help me recognize Master Sergeant George Hickman, the recipient of the 22 overall instructor. I will also add, and anyone here, I know he brought not one, but 2 principals with him, and any family and anyone else that's here for Master Sergeant Hickman, please stand. Ms. Freeman, that ends tonight's recognitions.
As trustees return to their seats, I just want to add my congratulations to Ms. Chambers, Sergeant Hickman, and
Okay, thank you all. That was great. And at this time, we're going to go into our agenda. If those people who we've recognized, you're welcome to. This is your opportunity to go have dinner and go celebrate. You're certainly welcome to sit here and listen to the rest of the board meeting, but maybe you would like to go have dinner. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate y'all.
Congratulations.
And while they're getting out, next item on the agenda is a report. We have reports from the School Health Advisory Committee end of year report.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Freeman. As Dr. Ridgely approaches the microphone to introduce our chair of SHAC, just want to mention that this is an annual report that we bring to the board to outline the major activities and areas of focus for SHAC.
Thank you, Dr. Jordan. Good evening, President Freeman, Board of Trustees. The School Health Advisory Council, we call SHAC, is made up of parents, staff, students, and community stakeholders to discuss health-related topics. Each year, the SHAC nominates a parent chair to preside over the council. So Sarah Knuckle has actually chaired the SHAC for 2 years. This is her final year with us, and we want to appreciate her for the personal time she's given up from her family to lead us in this group. I'd like to invite Sarah to the podium to give you the annual SHAC report.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Good to see you again. I was here last year with the mask on. Now I see your faces. The NISD, like Dr. Ridgely was explaining, let me give you an overview of our team that we've had this year. This year we've had 27 individuals. 14 of them have been district staff. We've had 5 parents and 7 community members, and we've also been honored to have 1 student. Our student advisor was Keith Ruiz. He was from Harlan High School. The SHAC community stakeholders were also involved, and they included Deanna Stansberry from the American Heart Association and Tori Parson from the Culinary Health Education for Families, chef. We this year have continued to have Danielle Leon from the Whole Child Department continue in her role as the district facilitator. And this year she's been joined by Caitlin Bollier, who's here with us, who also works in the Whole Child Department, and she's going to assume Danielle's role for next year. So with the SHAC this year, we have had 4 meetings during the 2021-2022 year, and our main task for this year was for our members to review and make recommendations on the district adoption of the new health education instructional material to include the sexual education and the healthy relationships for the 6th to 12th grade. All of our members, we spent extensive time diligently reviewing the State Board of Education recommendations on the Goodhart-Wilcox health skills for middle school and health skills for high school, their instructional material, which also included a companion text. After our review, we also provided 2 opportunities for the public to come for a viewing, and then a motion was made, and our members unanimously recommended that the health education instructional material be adopted for this upcoming school year, 2022-2023. So within our council, we also had subcommittees, and the subcommittees, we had 4 of them. Their main work was to collaborate and formulate ways to improve the health and wellness of the NISD. So our focus this year for the 4 subcommittees was the first one, the local wellness policy wellness plan, a progress monitoring. Within this group, they reviewed, they discussed the report on the progress of the district wellness policy, and this includes nutrition promotion and other things that all of you are familiar with. The second group we had was the physical activity and fitness planning. Their goal is to increase physical activity and to improve the fitness among our students. Our third one, which is close to my heart, I am a nursing professor. It was the nurse wellness. So within the nurse wellness subcommittee, they celebrated and really provided resources for our NISD nurses and the clinic assistants. There's a lot more than a nurse. There's the whole team that work, and they did this event during the Nurses Appreciation Week. So that was really meaningful to me. And finally, our last subcommittee was the SHAC Marketing and Recruitment. The SHAC Marketing and Recruitment, we really wanted to formulate a plan to increase parent membership and primarily to target areas within the district that are not currently represented. So you all have the details of the SHAC report that are outlined within your SHAC board report for the 2021-2022, and it has all the table of activities. But personally, I am a proud parent of 3 NISD children. I have 2 children, my first and third grader. They are in the dual program, so I thank all the Spanish teachers that my little blind children speak Spanish. My third child, I'm also really thrilled that you all have the full day pre-K. As a working mother, having full day pre-K has been very helpful for me as well. So I truly thank all of you for your service to all of our children and to mine. So as the outgoing chair of the NISD SHAC, I truly want to thank you for the opportunity that I've had to represent the district. It has been a privilege to oversee our council and to serve as an advocate for health and wellness within our NISD, for our NISD students and their staff. And that's it. So thank you all.
Thank you so much for all that you've done. And Miss Sarah, I'm sorry, help me pronounce your last name.
I know, Kaneko.
Kaneko. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
That's what it looks like, but I just wanted to make sure I had it correct.
The husband's German last name.
Well, thank you so much for all that you've done. I know it's been a busy year, and truly going through all of the materials was, I know that this board received a copy of all of that, so it was quite extensive, and I appreciate your work on all of that.
Yeah, well, it's very in line with my nursing role, but I just appreciate that I can be involved to speak to, the adoption. So thank you all.
And thank you.
Don't leave yet.
Ms. Chumley?
I just had a question. Did you have anyone show up at the public hearing on the text?
Well, Ms. Boiler was there. How?
No,
not community members.
members. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Is there anybody else here that's here from the SHAC? Okay, and just the both. Thank you, and congratulations on your new appointment. I do have a question, and Dr. Woods, if you're still there, this is for approval, but there's really nothing to approve. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, it is for approval. That's actually required in state statute, but you're right, essentially.
Okay, so is there a motion to my fellow board members? Ms. Chumley?
I move approval of the 21-22 School Health Advisory end-of-year report.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Again, thank you all very much. And you're certainly welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, or you also are free to leave. And there are some seats up in the front if anybody would like to come and I see a couple. Okay, next item on the agenda is citizens to be heard. We value your opinions and we will listen to what you have to say, although we are restrained by law from taking any action. We ask you to please address your remarks to the board, confine your remarks to a Northside policy or practice, limit your remarks to 3 minutes. At 2 minutes, our board secretary, Ms. Saldana, will hold up a yellow card. Saldana, can you show what the yellow card looks like? Okay. And then it's time to think about wrapping things up. You have 1 more minute after that. And then at the end of the 3 minutes, Ms. Saldana will hold up the red card, and then it is time to move on. So we ask that you do not make personal attacks on individuals, and ask the audience refrain from any applause or any negative response. And I'm going to say this too, this is a script that we read every time before citizens to be heard. I know there was a comment 1 or 2 meetings ago about, well, y'all just sit there and listen to us. Well, if it's not an agenda item, we by law, we don't dialogue. If this board has any questions about what has been presented after the meeting, we usually get with staff regarding that. So those actions are taking place at that time, but they cannot happen here at this meeting. So I see that we have two We have 2 citizens to be heard. We have several people that signed up to speak to an agenda item, and that was on item 12D. We're going to ask that you wait until we get to that agenda item so you can make those comments. So right now, these are non-agenda item citizens. Miss Brandy Leininger. And Ms. Leininger, I need to ask you too, because I thought that you have submitted a grievance, or that you've started a grievance with the school district. And is that correct?
Yes.
And is this about what you're going to talk about?
No.
Okay. And I was going to say, because if we get into that, saying things pertaining to that grievance before this board right here, it may be that if your grievance gets to level 4, then some of us may not be able to participate, and that's not something that any of us want to do. So I just caution you about talking about anything related to that grievance.
Right. No, I understand.
Okay,
but I
thank
do
you.
want to say before my time starts. So the last time that I spoke last month, you did make comments after I was done talking about the tone. So I have I'm sorry I don't come in with a disclaimer or something, but I sometimes don't have the ability to gauge whether I probably don't need the microphone. So it wasn't well received that.
Ms.
that you
Leininger, just go ahead and start with your comments.
Well, then I'll go ahead and start.
Please.
That'll be part of my comments if you'd like to start. But
Thank you.
we have 4 children that are all part of Northside. This is going to be the first year that we actually have one in elementary school, one in middle school, one in high school, and one in college. So if that doesn't tire everyone out, so we have, they've all gone through the Northside Independent School District schools, and we firmly, I had some notes here, but that kind of threw me off, so I'm going to start over. So I stood before you last month, and I poured my heart out about some of the lessons that had happened at the elementary school. And like I said, those comments that were made after I finished speaking were received as belittling, disrespectful, and apathetic at best, especially since I was pouring my heart out about something that was what I consider to be a severe concern, a big concern about something that had to do with my daughter. The Education Code under Title II, Subtitle E, Chapter 26 for Parental Rights and Responsibilities, right at the very top, Section 26.001 states the purpose: that parents are partners with educators, administrators, and school district board of trustees in their children's education. Parents shall be encouraged to actively participate in creating and implementing educational programs for their children. But the remarks showed the true colors, that perhaps you aren't interested in a partnership when it comes to our children's education. They most definitely were not words that were meant to encourage parents to actively participate in educational programs for our children, but rather to shut it down. I went back and I listened to each and every one of the citizen portions of the board meetings from the last school year. And I wish I could say I was surprised, but I really wasn't at the number of times that others were allowed to speak beyond the 3 minutes without interruption. Yet I felt like I was targeted and belittled and embarrassed, kind of like a bully does to a child. And so I did not appreciate that. Another thing that I've noticed in looking at, you guys are here, you wanted to be in this position, you're in this position, I still feel for the greater good. But in looking back, consistently, there were only 2 board members who even made eye contact with the person that was speaking. The rest of the time, board members are looking around, they're yawning, they're looking at other things and not paying attention, which I thought was also disrespectful. We are not obligated to be here, but we are coming here. And a lot of us want to have that partnership with you. We really feel that having that partnership, we can make this a better district. I really firmly feel that regardless of what we had happen with our daughter, I still firmly believe that that can happen. But it needs to feel like it's a partnership. It needs to feel like it's a 2-way street. And you need to act as though you're interested in wanting to know what the parents have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Leininger. The next person, and I'm sorry, I'm going to try to pronounce the last name correctly. Okay, thank you. It wasn't though, but thank you for that. So when I call your name, yes, sir, I got it. Mr. David Figliola. Okay, thank you.
So it's going to be awkward now. Thank you for having me, though. So my name is David Figliola. I have 2 children at Leon Springs Elementary, and so we recently had graduation there, and the environment was a little bit awkward, and I didn't know why because my wife really handles everything that goes on with the school and the kids. So when I started asking around, it had come to my attention that there was an issue related to an exercise back in January of this year. So as I understood everything to go on, I didn't make any conversation about it, but what I did decide to do was send Dr. Woods an email. And so now, in light of this conversation, if I could, I would just like to rather read the email that I sent as opposed to trying to speak to it. So I said, it has come to my attention that the faculty and administration at Leon Springs Elementary have recently faced increased scrutiny related to the segregation exercise conducted among the 5th grade students earlier this year. As my child was one of the kids segregated as inferior in the exercise, and as someone whose political views may conflict with the teacher at the center of the issue, I feel I have an important perspective on a matter that has been hyper-politicized for no other reason than to seemingly make an example out of an absolutely tremendous educator. I would like to offer any support necessary going forward on behalf of Robin Wright and the school administrators. In no way do I feel Ms. Wright's purpose of the exercise was ill-intentioned or meant to harm the children in any way. As our child told us the story of the day's activity, and again, she was one of the ones that was separated, she gave us no cause for alarm or anxiety related to the exercise. Had she been distraught at all, we would have known immediately and had a conversation directly with the teacher, Ms. Wright. Our daughter has had the benefit of being under Ms. Wright's care at Leon Springs Elementary for both 3rd and 5th grade. She has never exhibited any negative outcome related to any activity, lesson, or exercise being taught. Our history with Ms. Wright is long, and we know for a fact that she always has the kids' best interests in mind in whatever she is planning or teaching. Ms. Wright is by far one of the most caring and passionate individuals I have ever met in a school setting. The accusations being levied against her intentions with this exercise are so off base with her character that I completely question the motivation behind the individuals bringing them. Between our 2 children, we now have a combined 8 years of experience at Leon Springs Elementary with 2 to go. Ms. Espinosa, Mr. Coleman, and the entire faculty, faculty and staff are the reason why we sold our house in order to attend LSE. Our experience has been everything that we had hoped it would be for our children, both academically and socially, and our kids are much better off as a result. So just in closing, I would like to say that, and we're in an environment that is very hyper politicized with just about everything that's going on, and I need to stop right there.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. All right. It appears to me that everybody else that has signed up to speak is going to speak to item 12D. If there's anybody else that's signed up that wanted to speak to a non-agenda item, please let me know now. Okay, thank you. The end of our citizens to be heard. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Is there a motion coming before the board?
Yeah, I move approval of the consent agenda.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve consent agenda items. Any further discussion, board members? Okay, all those in favor? Ms. Chumley?
No, I was just turning on my mic.
Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, thank y'all. Next item under the agenda is curriculum and instruction. First item, A, adoption of state instructional materials for 22-23 school year. I'm assuming that's you, Dr. Jordan?
Yes, ma'am. So as y'all know, Proclamation 2022 is for health education instructional resources. You heard again our SHAC chair talk about the process of analyzing those materials and making a recommendation. Just a little background, the State Board of Education adopted really one instructional resource, which is Goodhart Wilcox, because that resource was completely aligned to the newly revised Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills. So we went through the process, as we've talked about, I think over 2 academics meetings. And we had teacher teams certainly review the materials. And so we're bringing forward to you the recommendation from SHAC that we adopt the Goodhart-Wilcox for health education in middle and high school.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Woods, any comments? I figured you'd interject, but I thought I'd call on you to see if you had anything to add. Dr. Woods?
Uh-oh.
Oh, okay.
You're getting rain.
Yeah, it's storming bad.
Ms. Freeman, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I apologize. It's the first day it's rained in 4 months. And, worked on it a couple of times. So, no, other than to thank Dr. Jordan and Dr. Ridgely for putting together, along with the SHAC, of course, what appears to be a very thorough process to analyze the materials, make them publicly available, and then bring them to the board for consideration. So, other than that, we just recommend approval of these materials.
Okay. Ms. Chumley?
I wanted to thank Dr. Ridgely for helping us. I had some questions about it, and I didn't want there to be an issue that came back later. And so I really appreciate that you took the time to bring me the text and the additional information. And, you know, it's hard as a parent and as a trustee. There's things that I did with my own sons that, you know, not all families do. But I thought that it was acceptable. I didn't really see anything there. I mean, because I'll just share with y'all, we have seen some health education or curriculum years ago. That was really kind of different, but it didn't go anywhere in this school district. But I just wanted to say that I really appreciated your time and effort to help with that. And one thing that I think it's important is that this is an opt-in program. So if there's any parent that is concerned or has a question, you have the ability to not have your child participate in that portion of the health education curriculum. So I really think that's important, that parents have that aspect of being able, in fact, they have to opt in. There is not, if a parent forgets and just doesn't sign the form, then the child doesn't participate, because it is a requirement that the child opt in. And I thought that was a really smart thing to do on that as well. So I just wanted to thank you, Kim, for offering us the opportunity to do that. And it's always funny because we never have any of our community that comes to review our books whenever we're doing new adoptions. And I've thought that that's always been interesting. Anyway, that was it, Karen.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else on the board? This item is up for approval. Is there a motion?
I move approval.
We have a motion and a second to approve the state instructional materials for the 2022-23 school year as presented. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you all for being here, hanging with us for this. Next item on the agenda is the optional flexible school day for Chavez Academy.
Yes, and so this also is an annual application that we bring forward to you. As you know, the optional flexible school day program has as a goal to improve graduation rates to prevent dropouts for students. The target audience is students who are having attendance issues, have at least 17 credits, and frankly, who are at risk of dropping out. Students fill out an application. They must reside in Northside, and they must have passed their exit level STAR exams. So this past year in 21-22, we had 229 students who participated at Chavez with an 82.7% graduation rate. which is a nice graduation rate for this group of students. So our ask is we've completed the application, which has been sent to you, and we would like your approval to submit it for 22-23.
Thank you, Dr. Jordan. Any questions? Is there a motion?
Can I ask a question first?
Absolutely. Ms. Saldana?
Dr. Jordan, I know I missed the last academic meeting, but since these
mic.
kids,
Thank you.
since these kids are there because they're, obviously we're trying to keep them from dropping out and we want them to graduate. Can you speak to why the ADA is only 83%?
Well, that's the graduation rate.
No, ma'am, I'm looking at the attendance rate.
At
The attendance
oh.
rate for 21-22 is
Well, there's
83.
there's a whole host of issues and experiences these students have. As you know, some students may be parents themselves, some students may be working. And so already many of these students, they're at Chavez because of attendance issues. So when they've been at our comprehensive campuses, they might be in danger of losing credit so it's already an issue. And when they're over at Chavez with more focused attention with a flexible schedule, typically students have higher attendance rates at Chavez than they did at their
So is that
campus.
a good attendance rate for the kids at Chavez, 83?
Well, when you look across, you see we've been in the 80s when we go back to 18, 19. I mean, if you ask us, we want 100%. So I think you continually want to have students in school. I think this percentage, it went down from 89.5 to 83.1. I think that reflects the downturn in attendance that we've seen across the district from a whole host of issues.
It looks to me like if we could get them in school, we could have a higher graduation rate if we could convince them to be there, because it seems to me like the ones who are in school are the ones graduating.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're able to complete all the things they need to complete.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Chumley?
So one thing I think that is affecting it too is that one thing that we have seen is that we've had a lot of our students that have gone to work over the COVID period, and it's been hard to get some of those kids back. And I think that very much is reflective on this. But from our review of this in academics, I think that we've got some strategies to try to get more of these kids to stay and to graduate from this with a degree. And then the other thing that I thought was interesting in academics, because it bothered me that kids had to pass all the STAR tests to be eligible for this. I thought some of these kids are really struggling in the first place, but I liked that the district has other opportunities for students that have not been successful for STAR that we can use to be able to meet that requirement, or there's other programs that we have for some of these kids too. So this used to be what I thought was pretty much the only opportunity to bring back some of our kids, but that's been expanded and we do have some others as well. So I was just going to share that.
Great point.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Blunt?
Yeah, plus the other vantage point, I missed the academic committee discussion on it, but it would also be interesting to know, for example, I don't know, we got one category that has 4 and it's 86.3, but is that one student that maybe was 70-something% and the other was 90-something%? And I know we do that in other type of analysis when we're looking at that. So that'd be something else I'm sure we can take a look at.
Absolutely.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. This item is also for approval.
I move
There
approval. I just did something.
There's a motion and a second to approve the optional flexible school day for Chavez Academy. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Jordan. Okay, now, item number 11, facilities and operations. Mr. Leroy San Miguel.
Thank you. The item before you today is the approval of a change order. Some of you remember that when we first had the discussion about our projects, we are in a very volatile market. As a result of that, we're looking at strategies to be able to expedite construction so that we can take advantage of ordering materials and things of that nature. When we came before you the last time, we recommended that the board approve the GMP, the amendment number 2, based on estimates from George General Contractor, who is the GMP, our CM at risk contractor. And that's, again, is to save time. And obviously, it has paid off because concrete has gone up to almost 30% by the time that the board acted on that, to the point we signed an actual contract on that particular item. So it has really paid off dividends for us. So today, and we also said that these were estimates, and so that if there were changes in the market due to the volatile market, that we would come before you and ask for consideration for additional funding to make the project whole. So we're here today to request that the board approve the sum of $1,186,140 for a total GMP of $46,829,561. And again, this was done in an effort to be able to mitigate circumstances in a very, very difficult and challenging times when it comes to our projects out there. Today we have in the audience George General Contractor, I think is called, who assures me he's not going to come back and ask for any more money. And Jerry Lammers with the architect, in case there are questions.
Thank you. This item was discussed at length in facilities or building committee. Ms. Chumley?
It was. And I think that what we all need to recognize is that this is just a very unique and different time in relation to construction and cost of materials, availability of materials, because normally when we do the GMP, it's pretty much a set. But I think that we need to make sure that we're fair to our contractor, because I absolutely know from all the experience that we have had with working with Joris and Jerry, with you with Alamo Architects, that y'all are going to look out for our best interest. And I think that it was a very large savings for us to do what we did before, to approve that. And I'm assured that y'all, and I trust you, that y'all have ordered all of the materials that you can possibly order to make sure that they get here in time and that we get the best value for it as well. So I just want to thank you. And I just want the board to know that I think we really just need to recognize this is a unique situation, not something that I hope we end up doing on a regular basis, but that we appreciate the partnership that we have with your companies and with you individually in relation to this construction project. And I move approval.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, or is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the change order to GMP of Fine Arts to John Jay High School. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank y'all for being here. Mhm. Okay, next under business and finance, we have 4 separate items, and I know several, Dr. Burrell has several people here to speak under compensation, so we'll leave that for the end of that. Reimbursement resolution first.
Yes, ma'am. With the passage of the 2022 bond program, we are now bringing for the board to consider a reimbursement resolution. That means that if we incur any bond-related expenditures between essentially today and before we actually go out and sell bonds, probably sometime in 2023, we can then use those bond proceeds to pay us back as a general fund. We'll have to upfront that money for whatever it is that Leroy and his group are going to incur in expenses related to the 2022 bond program.
Okay. And this was brought up in finance, Dr. Barajas. Gerald, is there anything that, or Mr. Lopez, anything you'd
No.
like to comment
I
on?
just move for approval
Okay.
for reimbursement resolution.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in, any other questions from the board? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. Dr. Barajas.
The approval of the NCBUs, or non-campus-based units. We started this practice, I don't know if it was last year or the year before. Normally, sometime in April, we would bring to the board for approval the campus-based units that are submitted through GNI. The board would give approval, and those would be included in the final adopted budget in August. Well, we decided, since we go through the process of having the board approve the campus-based units, there are times, like this year, where we have 7 non-campus-based units that we're asking for approval to include in the 22-23 budget that the board will consider for adoption in August. And these are positions that you've seen probably over the last 2 presentations with the addition of 1. I think the last time you saw this, there was only 6, but we've added 1 position, which is the Director of Recruitment and Retention.
Okay. And I'm going to ask Dr. Woods, any comments? Are you still with us?
Yes, ma'am. Just not a lot of comment other than this was much larger when we began the growth and improvement process. And of course, it was the non-campus units that got cut as we went through the process. And so we bring you a net of 7 and recommend approval as we continue to build out that 22-23 budget.
Okay. All right. Board members, questions?
I've got a question.
Ms. Chumley?
Brian, so when I'm looking at this, the eliminated positions, have we restructured that area, or?
Yes,
Because I know
ma'am.
that we've had.
We restructured, and that was actually asked for before we needed some cost-cutting measures. And so that has been very helpful in eliminating some dollars from the budget, a simple act of restructuring.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. You have a motion?
I move that we approve the non-campus-based units for 2022-23.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the non-campus-based units. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. And Dr. Barajas, growth and improvement packages, which is not it's not part of the compensation.
That is correct.
plan.
The other component of the 22-23 budget is called growth and improvement. What's been stripped out of this, of course, which the board has already approved, are the campus-based units back in April. And just seconds ago, you approved the non-campus-based units. So essentially, what's left in GNI is all the stuff that is not a FTE or unit or person, a new position for next year. So the board is so administration is asking the board for approval to move forward with these packages to include again in the 22-23 budget. The information that was presented is in a format that the board has seen before. Although included in the presentation that was in the agenda are the rundown of all the different units. But if you strip that away and you look at everything else that's in here, these are all the items that were asked for by staff to be included in the 22-23 budget. Again, that do not have anything to do with a unit.
Okay, these are the same slides we've seen in the past.
That is correct.
And nothing has changed since, I didn't see anything, but is there anything that's changed since we last looked at it?
I believe the only change that we have, I'd have to look for my colleagues over here who have been working on this.
Can you go back up one slide, Nathan? On the new school base, we had the ROTC program approved, so that jumped back up to the 80 FTE. So that's a
One
minor
position.
change that was approved in April, and it just got back into the package.
we were told no at the time, and now we're told yes. So that'll be included
So-
in the proposed budget that you will be adopting in August
So
for that
we're-
position.
We're all very appreciative of that. I know Dr. Woods has had worked a lot to try to make that happen,
And
and
it
some
just
other staff
happened
as well.
The last 2 days.
So, yep,
Yeah. So
that's great for Sotomayor's. Okay, Ms.
Just
Chumley.
a quick comment on that. We literally were notified last Friday that we had been granted a unit for 22-23. It would have been, Sotomayor would have been the only Northside High School TC unit. So we are extremely grateful and happy to be able to add this back into the organization.
Thank you. Thanks for your work on that. Ms. Chumley, did you have?
No, that was my question. Yeah, when I saw that back, I was curious if we had been successful. So yeah, that was it, Karen.
Okay, thank you. All right, members of the board. Any other further comments, questions, or is there a motion?
I move that we approve the 2022-23 growth and improvement package that was presented by staff.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the GNI as we talked about. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is our 2022-2023 compensation plan. Before we get started with the staff presentation, I am going to go back to our citizens to be heard. Again, I'm not going to read the rules again. Again, same rules as we talked about originally. We ask that you confine your comments to this particular agenda item. Limit your remarks to 3 minutes. At 2 minutes, Ms. Saldana will hold up the yellow card. And then at the end of 3 minutes, when your time is up, she'll hold up the red card. Again, please refrain from applause or negative response. And the first person I have at the top of my list is Mr. Haroon Moniz. Did I say that right? Did I? Oh, okay. So I failed.
I'll introduce myself. No worries.
Okay, so thank you. I am so sorry.
No worries. The name is Haroon Moniz.
Moniz. Okay.
I am your multicultural polyglot teacher of 21 years at Northside Independent School District, who has also been recognized as a pillar of citizenship by you guys, or NEF, I should say. So good evening. As you may recall, I've come before this board twice within the last several months. I'm very appreciative of having, again, the opportunity to address you. You may remember that I have worked as a teacher for Northside for 21 years. I hope you also remember that I'm a very passionate teacher and I'm committed to NISD. That's why I've stuck around. Sadly, though, teaching has become a more difficult endeavor financially for me and for that of my colleagues. As I previously mentioned, the pay difference between a newly hired teacher and a veteran teacher is around $8,000. It takes 21 years of service to earn an $8,000 pay raise. Think about that. The pay variance is simply not commensurate with the experience many of us possess. In prior years, annual pay increases generally have been sufficient enough to cover the rising healthcare costs. However, this year, considering the continued rising of healthcare costs, along with the additional challenge of inflation, which is over 8% at the moment, a 2% increase is just not proportional to the rising costs of living that we all must face. My colleagues and I spend a great deal of time teaching. Are we to think that we're expected to go and find additional employment to supplement our income? That can't be possible. I can't do that. We're asking you to remember this increase is the job we do. When you consider this increase, ask yourself, is the job we do important to you? Are the children we teach important to you? Do you value us? If so, show us. Show us we matter to you. Show us by giving us a true raise. I'm a writer, so I'll give you the title of my speech at this moment, a true raise. Pipe dream? It shouldn't be. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Miss Wanda Longoria?
Good evening, trustees and Dr. Woods. Wanda Longoria, president of Northside AFT. We've been coming before you since April, fighting for a 4.5 increase for all frontline employees and asking you to address a $15 an hour living wage for classified and auxiliary personnel. Our proposals were made following calculations adjusted for inflation and translated into 2021 dollars for comparison, specifically for Northside, by our Texas AFT affiliate. We've already shared those with you in hopes the NISD Finance Department would bring options beyond the one proposed. Those stats are as follows for 2009-10. Average teacher salaries in NISD have gone down by 7.76%, a greater decrease than the statewide average. Starting teacher salaries have gone down by 4.6%, a greater decrease than the statewide average. Support staff salaries have gone down by 9.29%, a greater decrease than the statewide average. Central admin salaries increased by 4.99%, a greater increase than the statewide average. Increase in teacher salaries, which were 0.91%. Support staff teacher, starting teacher, and campus admin salaries in NISD have all decreased, yet central office salaries in NISD have increased by almost 5%. Since 2011-12, paraprofessionals' base pay has decreased by 5.26%, while the statewide average base pay has increased by 0.92%. Paraprofessionals and auxiliary staff are the only two groups which are making less than the statewide average salary. Northside ISD has a higher cost of living than the state of Texas on average, so it makes sense that NISD staff should be making more than the statewide average. When indexed to the cost of living, NISD teachers, starting teachers, paraprofessionals, auxiliary support, and campus admin are all making less than the statewide average. Only NISD central admin make more than the statewide average when indexed to cost of living. The Texas average cost of living is 93.9, whereas the NISD area has a much higher cost of living, 102.5. While there's a projected $17 million budget deficit with the most recently proposed budget, we know these deficits aren't uncommon. Review of the 2021 NISD budget. The final budget had a projected deficit of $43 million, but the district ended the year with $60,000 in budget excess. We also stand in opposition of one mitigation strategy mentioned in the budget of holding vacant positions vacant. We feel holding vacant positions for a set period of time is a very dangerous strategy. Depending on where those vacancies are, they could seriously make life harder for our students and our teachers. We ask you to please address these concerns, and we thank you for your continued time.
Okay, thank you. I ask that you please refrain from clapping because, thank you. Ms. Tracy Jordan. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Mr. Tracy Jordan.
Okay. Been that way for years.
Sorry.
Good evening, Dr. Woods, President Freeman, and members of the board. I'm Tracy Jordan, proud teacher of Northside Independent School District's John Jay High School Science and Engineering Academy. I'm also the proud executive vice president of the Northside American Federation of Teachers. And I want to talk to you about compensation. You know, a 2% raise would provide a teacher starting salary of $57,808. Northside is the fourth largest district in the state of Texas, and some say the district of destination. The largest school district gave their teachers an 11% raise. The next largest school, and that gave a starting salary of $61,500. The second largest school or district gave a raise of 10% with a starting salary of $60,000. The third largest gave their teachers a 3.4% raise with a starting salary of $60,500. Our neighbors in the Northeast Independent School District, the second largest school district in San Antonio, gave their teachers a 2% raise, but they also pay 84% of their medical premiums. making it more of a 6 to 7% increase. Now, we're not asking for an 11%, a 10%, or even a 6%, just a 4.5%, which would bring a starting salary to $59,225. If we truly are the district of destination, please consider a 4.5% raise for teachers and a living wage starting pay of $15 for support personnel. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Michael Song. Good evening.
Hello there. A lot of the stats I was going to bring up have already been mentioned, so I'll kind of skip ahead with some things. Northside strong, Northside connected, Northside together. These are some of the themes that Northside has promoted over the last few years. Now, I'm a fine arts teacher, and I beg you, connect with your teachers. Come together with us. Take a strong look at what you're offering as compensation and as stipends, and tell me if you think that it's fair, and if it's not, then do everything in your power to correct it. Talking stipends for a second, because I rarely hear those talked about. As a middle school teacher, I put in over 140 hours beyond the standard school day. That comes out to about $12.86 an hour, given what the stipend covers. My last year in high school, I put in 402 hours of overtime, which comes out to being about $11.20 as an assistant director, and only $17.42 for a full-time director. And this does not include extra hours, things like dances, back to school, elective fairs, award assemblies, faculty meetings, field days, which you can say aren't mandatory, but they're part of our T-tests. The average base salary in San Antonio is $57,684. The average salary is between $65,000 and $74,000. NISD's base salary is $56,675. It will take 23 years to make $65,000. And put you into the average salary in San Antonio. The school day was extended a few years ago, and the year is now 46.75 hours longer, which equates to about 6 extra days, but compensation has not adjusted to match. Welcome to the promised land. These are the words that I hear every year welcoming new teachers. And when we have our breakouts, they tell us, do more, give students more opportunities, go above and beyond, show them what Northside is all about. Well, what teaching is about is not the same as it was a few years ago. It requires more. It involves more. There is more danger in the classroom, working to create safe environments, returning from COVID and retraining students and parents. Phone calls, grading, lesson plan, documentation. I personally know 11 teachers from various districts that have left teaching this year. Teachers are tired of being told you're a teacher because it's your passion, like it's an argument justifying why we should go above and beyond, when it's not only a passion, but our means of earning a living. They say, do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. Well, I can't tell you how many people I know that would love to do what they love, but love does not pay the bills. Now, I could not be here previously because I was at summer camps like Frozen Junior. Thank you for the shout out earlier, Mr. Lopez. Rehearsals, clubs, etc. You tell us we're appreciated, but we need to be shown. You say that this is the promised land, but those promises ring hollow when we hear a 2% raise is all that's on the table. Actions speak louder than words, and all teachers became new teachers during the pandemic in the sense that we all had to start from scratch. Teaching is harder now than it has ever been. Most teachers I know have a side hustle. As inflation was already mentioned, I'll skip that. Value your staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Benjamin Conley. Good evening.
I don't have a script. What I've noticed and what breaks my heart and makes me angry is hearing that my coworkers would be on food stamps or food assistance and needing assistance, and they pull, 40 sometimes, they're starving for hours, especially in the summertime. And so, just speaking with them and, I think, and I know this is against y'all's data, we figured out with 40 hours, it would be about $25 an hour for modest living accommodation. And, and I know that these people have families. I am a single man, so it's a different situation. but I see it in their faces every day, and it breaks my heart. And how can we be stable, a stable thing? We are the first thing they see in the morning. We're the last people we see in the morning. I mean, in the afternoon, from the regular school year to the summer school. And we, just the same as the teachers, and I stand with the teachers and the IAs, we deserve better. We want to be the stability for these kids. We care about this community as much as y'all do. And it's hard, because I don't like it when people have to say, well, go just get another job. You're just a bus driver. Go get another job. Go do something else. Go back to trucking. And I love children. I love that I have an impact on my community. But people still deserve to eat. People still deserve to take care of their families. Thank you.
Thank you. Somebody's gonna have to help me. Aseneth Medina. Hi, Miss Medina. Pronounce your first name, please, for me. Sorry. Aseneth. Okay, thank you.
Well, I have a little bit of a script. I'm speaking. Well, let me take it this way. I'm going to take some of the words that I've heard here tonight and that I've heard at other meetings, school board meetings. Tonight it was said, we have to be fair to our contractors. I bet you're not paying them in thank yous. And in former or past meetings, I've heard members say, well, isn't our thanks enough? No. You can't feed your family on thanks. You can't pay your bills on thanks. We can't do charity on thanks. So I'd like for you to consider that. No, thanks isn't enough. And when we brought up the issue of the extra 15 minutes without compensation, another board member said, well, it's not like our teachers have set hours. So when does it stop? Do we work till 5 o'clock with students, 6 o'clock, 7, because we don't have set hours? There needs to be some thought, forethought, afterthought, mid-thought about what's going on and actually what's not going on. We need to say to, you need to say to each other, board members, let's really talk about this. Let's think about it from their point of view. A lot of teachers say, well, once someone becomes an administrator, they forget what it's like to be a teacher. Maybe you could take that perspective. Maybe let's think about it in the teachers, the bus drivers' point of view. We give our evenings. You saw even when a board member brought a child here, it's tough. Sometimes teachers have to take children to school for work days. And those poor kids, they work. Okay, son, I need you to staple this. I need you to put this over there. I need you to deliver this there. So, I mean, we're bordering on child labor there. We need help, and we're bringing in our children. And it's evident because we've seen it happen here on a couple of occasions. We just can't run on thank yous. And I hate to sound inconsiderate, but we do appreciate those. Those are nice, but they don't help us at all. We've given the evenings, the weekends, parts of our holidays, and then we also open up our wallets. So not only do we bring in less, what we have, we give out. And it's a ripple effect in the community with the charity. And it starts at home, we've heard, but it's at school. Kids, let's all bring in peanut butter. Again, and we get it from the parents. Oh, we need you all to donate 30, 40 glue sticks. Again, I thought, well, sorry, we don't have that. So you're reflecting or your decisions, oh, you don't know, maybe you do. The impact it has. Like I said, in the giving, the donating, coming again, we have to donate again. And like I said, it's coming from parents, children, and the adults on campus. Please reconsider a larger compensation package. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Medina. Mr. William Thomas.
Good evening, board members.
My name is Bill Thomas, and proud 19-year veteran, all at Northside. I currently teach at Zachary Middle School. Last year was tough. Last year was probably the toughest year I've gone through teaching middle schoolers with, I guess, 2 kids out for 2 years with COVID, and we had a lot of discipline issues, and I'd like to think we get rewarded for that. Northside AFT has been before you trustees since April of last year, arguing for a 4.5% raise, right? And our frontline workers as well. We brought you options. Since then, we've learned that Judson has given a 6% raise to teachers, 4% for administration. Edgewood has given a 3 to 3.5% raise. SAISD has given a 3% raise to teachers and support personnel. And now NEISD has also given a 2% to raise to teachers, 3% to support personnel and classified at midpoint, and 1% at midpoint for administration, while also stating their strongest retention point is paying for employee insurance. We've already been informed employee insurance costs will be going up in Northside, and employees will incur these increases. Over and over again, we see a pattern of districts prioritizing frontline employees as receiving a heftier raise. We know these are difficult times, but we are in a much stronger position fiscally than some of these districts, in addition to being the 4th largest district in the state. Yet NISD Finance Department has presented only one option for the district trustees to consider: a 2% increase for teachers and a 4% increase for support personnel. Northside AFT has been waiting for the meeting of the Finance Committee, and we have yet to see a meeting posted. When were these questions and considerations taken up for review? We asked the school board trustees to require that the Finance Department come back to the table, answer these questions, pose other options, and share the data Northside AFT has shared with you, the trustees, before the final decision is made. By July 8th, teachers must inform their districts of plans to remain or leave 45 days prior to the first day of instruction, so they are not penalized by TEA. We are asking these concerns be addressed and a compensation package be finalized by that date to allow teachers to make clear decisions regarding where they want to teach next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lisa Valenzuela.
Hi, I'm kind of nervous.
It's okay. We're here. Take your time.
I'll let my husband go first.
Okay. Is this Mr. Okay, thank you. Mr. Alfonso Valenzuela.
Yes, I would also like to you guys to go back to the table. I don't know if you guys know, but I'm a custodian and I work with kids from the morning to the afternoon, and most of our employees are always asking for time off, and I have to give it to them. We're always asking for help. We can never get any help. I think we're down to 270 maybe custodial personnel down. There's high schools with maybe 5 or 6 custodians working where there should be 20 to 25. And they're all leaving for that one reason, the pay. We can't keep anybody. We can't encourage anybody. We try to do like they ask us, encourage them, give them praise, everything. It doesn't work. Like this, the people before me said, it doesn't work. It works for a week, and the next week when the pay comes, that goes away. It's not helping. I'm losing. I already lost one person, and depending on what happens here or the raise they give, I'm going to lose another one. They're already looking elsewhere. It's like a spiraling snowball going downhill. It's only going to get worse. It's getting difficult. It's getting very hard. People go on vacation. We have one person. I have one person on campus staying. We have summer school with one person staying to finish cleaning up by herself, and she has diabetes, high blood pressure. Yesterday, she almost fainted, and she was by herself. And we have nobody. I asked for help since last week, no help. We can't get any help. It's only getting worse. she's up for retirement. She's already going to go file the paperwork because she's had it also. It's just getting to a point where we can't handle it anymore at our campuses, and I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but most of this is the same feeling going across the district. Everybody I talk to has the same feeling. I'm looking elsewhere. I'm looking elsewhere. I'm looking elsewhere. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Valenzuela. Okay.
Well, I
Okay,
work-
fine.
Okay, my name is Lisa Valenzuela. I work for the cafeteria, Child Nutrition, and we're also dealing with the same shortage. We're people short in our cafeteria, where a high school should be having also 15 to 20 people, only have 7 or 8. Then they're pulling from other schools to try to cover over here. So, I mean, and what we're getting paid is not enough. I've been with the district over 20 years, and I'm still not making $15 an hour. Just reconsider, because y'all are gonna lose people. If you don't have your bus drivers, your custodial, or cafeteria workers, who are you gonna have to have these kids? Who are you gonna have to take the kids to school? Who are you gonna have to clean up after them? Who are you gonna have to cook for them? And the teachers too. Everybody's working harder, and the pay it doesn't make sense. All these other people above us, board members, everybody, they're getting. We have to see vacation photos when we go to our convocation. I went to Paris. I went here. I went there. I don't want to see that. I don't go. I don't get to have those kind of vacations. It's like throwing it in our face. They're making so much money, yet we're all the ones doing all the hard work. Show us appreciation. I don't know what else to say. It's not fair. It's not fair. Why should we have to go look for extra work? We've asked before also in the cafeteria. Custodials doesn't have work. We don't work the summer. We have to go look for work in the summer. Why? Because we're a contract to work, the days. And we've asked, can we help custodial work? Why hire other people? There's nobody want to come to work for the pay. And there's some of us that want to work in the summer. We have to go somewhere else. So, I just wish we really would reconsider. Because a lot of people, from teachers all the way around, your workers that work hard for our students, are not getting compensated enough for the cost of living. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That ends the end of our comments for citizens for comments on item 12D. So as we go into this, Dr. Woods, did you want to kick this off, or Dr. Barajas? How do y'all want to go forward with this?
The only thing I'd say as we go into the presentation, Ms. Freeman, is that while the board has seen some of this, we did, at the board's request, do some additional comparison slides to other districts in the area, especially with regard to teachers' salaries. So you will see that in Dr. Brown's presentation.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'd like to go over the slides. And then, Dr. Woods, while you're still on with us, we don't make these decisions in a vacuum. So while we are not tonight approving the budget, in general, our budget estimates, we use those budget estimates as we consider compensation. So any thoughts on that, or how would you like to summarize, or want to do that at the end of this?
No, I'm happy to do that now. It gives good context. The board saw very recently, as a matter of fact, where we are with our estimated budget for 22-23. And while we are talking small deficit budget in this current year that will close at the end of August. We're talking about a much larger one for the 22-23 school year because we have to assume no additional state aid with regard to attendance and enrollment. So that and frankly adding to the budget through growth and improvement and compensation combined to create that rather large projected deficit for the end of 2023 fiscal year. So it is with that context that we make this compensation proposal, just as it was when we made the growth and improvement proposal. As I said at the top of the meeting, it's not a matter of believing that this is everything that makes us all pleased with regard to compensation. That's not the case, but there is an issue of affordability. And we have to be able to afford these continued costs. Compensation is an ongoing cost. And so it must be budgeted for not only in 22-23, but in future years as well.
And before, I know I've spent some time talking with you and Dr. Barajas and looking back on some of our prior budgets. I know there's been some comments throughout as we've talked about compensation and budget that about our overestimation or where we are with that. I looked at the budget that we approved back in August of last year, and that budget actually indicated a $35 million deficit. And as I looked at that, if we look at the budget for last year and what we're looking at, that's kind of right on the money. We have a $35 million deficit, except we have opted to use ESSER funds to help mitigate that deficit. And I know that's certainly not what we talked about using the ESSER funds for back in August. Would you care to elaborate? Because I want to make sure I have those figures correct. And just
You do. That estimate ended up being fairly, given how kind of chaotic it was through the school year with regard to funding, it ended up being pretty accurate. And if it weren't for some reclassification of ESSER dollars, that number would have actually been larger than the one that we presented a couple of weeks ago.
okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, you want to go on with the compensation presentation?
Yes, in fact,
Dr. Barajas?
yes, the presentation by and large is many of the same data points that you've seen before, but as Dr. Woods mentioned, we did add a couple of comparisons based on getting some data from districts around the area who have now either proposed or adopted their salary schedule for next year. So we included that. So the current proposed compensation plan, again, you've seen this for a while, is the change to the hiring schedule, a $1,250 increase to teacher pay, 2% increase for what we normally refer to as a general increase for all non-auxiliary employees, 4% increase for auxiliary employees. Mentioning the sub rates are going to remain the same. We don't see any other district around the area lowering their sub rate, so we're going to have to continue to have that rate. And again, usually there are some market salary adjustments, stipends, and some reclassifications that become part of the proposed compensation plan. As you mentioned, that is usually considered for approval this time of the year, but all of these payments, the increases, don't happen until next fiscal year. It's basically just giving us that nod of, yes, please include this in the budget that you're going to send to us in August, which the board will then approve at that time. So next slide, please. So again, just to hone in on the teacher hiring schedule, the $1,250 pay increase, having to make an adjustment for the hiring schedule for 22-23. As you can see, the first year teacher pay is going to $57,590. The differentials between the different levels, 1, 2, 3, 4, will remain the same, just as they did in 21-22. So if you compare 21-22's hiring schedule to 22-23, you will see the differences as far as that $1,250 increase. But you will also see the differential between all the different levels are exactly the same as they were in 2021, 22. So here it is. Why talk about it when you can just look at it, right? Picture's worth 1,000 words, so you can kind of see what the proposed 22-23 hiring schedule will be should the board approve this. Master's degree, just like before, is a $1,500 increase addition, as is the doctorate degree. Are there any questions? We'll go rather slowly through this just in case the board is digesting this and has any questions regarding.
Sorry, do you need some assistance?
I'm sorry, Renee, I don't see that on the.
Yeah, for some reason
it's not on the agenda.
The PowerPoint should have been.
You may have to, so I will.
Yeah, it's not pulling.
Mr. Lopez, may I suggest you re-sign in? You maybe close it out and re-sign?
No, I'll just share off.
Okay.
Okay.
Let us know when you're ready to move on.
Go ahead, Renee, I'm sorry.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
So the next slide is the graph showing current 21-22, where we were in relation to the districts that are normally considered our competition, where we lose teachers and others too. So as you can see, the very top line in the pink color, we were in 21-22 across the board higher from year 0 all the way to year 30. The dotted line represents the Bexar County average, which does not include Northside in that number. However, a lot of movement from other districts as far as what they wanted to do for 22-23. So if we go to the next slide, you can kind of see, you see more of these spaghetti lines as far as where are we now. Well, the pink is still Northside, but
That's with this
that's with 22-23, right? So our proposed, that's correct.
compensation.
That's correct. And from those districts around the area, it's, you know, the usual suspects, but we included others that have also put out either through, they've adopted it already, or they are saying this is our proposed 22-23 hiring schedule. You can kind of see where we are still relatively at the top, although, and we just confirmed this, East Central has increased their hiring schedule quite a bit to now take the lead, and basically from year 5 all the way just about to year 30 when a few districts kind of get together. So that's what we're looking at now for 22-23. If all these districts have either adopted or the proposed.
I'm sorry, there's a lot of conversation, so can you please keep it down so we can hear? Thank you. Yes, Ms. Chumley, do you have a?
So Renee, if we look at, because East Central isn't on the 21-22, any idea where, using their current, not their proposed increase, but using their current salary, where they would have fallen?
They'd be pretty low. And I think that's one reason why that district, through whatever machinations they went through and during their budget process, decided that they wanted to increase the teacher hiring schedule. I have no idea what they did for any other group, auxiliary or any others. We're just looking at teacher hiring schedules. The other thing to consider is that our teacher hiring schedule is also has other groups tied to that hiring schedule. I have no knowledge whether or not those teacher hiring schedules from any other district have anybody else tied to them, like nurses and counselors and diagnosticians and things like that. So, but for 21-22, we didn't put East Central on there because, again, those other districts, Judson, Northeast, and San Antonio, have been traditionally the districts that we are comparing ourselves to because, again, I've been led to believe that that's our competition. So, but if we added East Central on there, it would be quite low. And they are making up some ground in 22-23, as are a lot of districts, as you can see, as we move to the 22-23 comparison.
Mr. Blunt?
Yeah, sorry. I just missed this to now. If we go back to on the 21 and 22, did you say the Bear County average does or does not include Northside?
Does not include Northside.
The reason why I was wondering is what that would mean to me is that because Judson, Northeast, and are actually are below the average, that would mean that East Central and some others had to be above for it to average out that
There were
way, correct?
probably a few that were above, but again,
Yeah.
if they were at that time, we weren't looking at them
Right,
because
no, I'm
again,
with
the
you on that.
information was that, well, we're not even losing teachers or others to those districts, despite the fact that maybe at year 10 and on that the pay rate was slightly higher. So
And it's not a weighted average; it's just a district average. And
that's
you know,
just taking an average across all the districts
Okay.
except for Northside. Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see a weighted one. Okay, thanks.
That I did pull that up.
Oh, did you?
From it was in the February, I think the February board meeting that we had, the 21-22 spaghetti lines, spaghetti graph, and it was interesting. There was only one district that at one particular point, and it was out in the out years, that was higher than us. We were at the very top regarding all school districts in Bear County for 21-22, except for one district with at the outer end. I think I don't see any other board members. I think one thing to look at here, I know that I keep hearing from other, as we talk to other trustees and certainly comments that we see, that some districts have given a 6% raise, but even with the 6%, they're still under our projected 22-23 compensation plan. It's hard to compare percentages when you look at something like this. So I appreciate this particular graph. Thanks for including it. Any other questions, trustees? I'm sorry, no ma'am.
Okay.
Ready? Go ahead.
So moving on to the next slide, just some more information about the midpoint pay increase, kind of on the 2-point and kind of going through what that means. We covered, and the board also received through a Friday letter, all those groups who are included under auxiliary, kind of the main 5 groups. Just kind of showing how that adjustment is made. This is what compensation, who's under HR, goes through, and they move the min, the mid, and the max by half of the proposed increase, in this case 1%, and then they apply the 2% to that new midpoint. So any employee who is below the midpoint would see a slightly larger raise than 2%, to your point, Mr. Blunt. If you're below the average, then you're going to say, wow, I actually am getting a bigger raise. But if you're above the average, then you're going to say, I didn't get a 2% on the midpoint. The key word there or phrase is on the midpoint. It's not 2% on your salary.
Okay. Ms. Chumley.
Renee, I know you sent it to us, but I'm sorry. Non-auxiliary, just give me an example of those employees.
Me, I'm non-auxiliary. A lot of people in this room who are staff, but the auxiliary are, the custodians, food service, police officers, those types of groups that are in the 4% group.
So non-auxiliaries are administrative staff.
They would be included in that, certainly,
Would be
yeah.
included in that.
Right.
I think that's on the next slide.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry, just wasn't.
All of our clerical employees would
Yeah.
be included in the same broad category.
Non-auxiliary, I thought our paraprofessionals were auxiliary, Brian.
No, ma'am.
No, they're
not
non-auxiliary?
those in the clerical spaces, they are not.
So am I reading this correct, Renee, Dr. Barajas, that we will now have a minimum starting salary then of $16.83 per hour on non-auxiliary? So that would be
an actual pay range.
This was a pay grade, a specific one.
Yeah,
Oh, a
just to use
specific-
it as an example. Yeah.
Okay. So do we have many non-auxiliary that would fall under $15 an hour?
I can't answer that. I'm not sure. That's a question the compensation would be able to address.
Okay, thank you.
This was just for illustrative purposes to show you how the methodology to get to
Behind it.
the midpoint increase, right?
Fine.
Okay.
And
Auxiliary.
in that same space, if we look at the auxiliary midpoint pay increase, same math, it's basically then just adjusting all of the min, mid, and max by now 2%, which is half of the 4% auxiliary, and doing the same calculation going all the way through.
Okay.
So, again, is this?
Are we ready to move on? I'm sorry.
I think so.
Okay.
Okay.
So
I may
next
come
slide,
back to
please.
that.
Okay.
Looking at the, again, what I mentioned earlier about continuing the substitute pay rate, you can see the amounts that are there. Again, not making any recommended changes. However, in August or September, if we find out our competition has increased the rates, it may force our hand to have to then consider what would it cost the district to, if we are finding that we can't get enough subs to make that a kind of adjustment. So, you know, this isn't a one and done necessarily. It's based on what other districts are doing and who they are taking employees from to have to see whether or not we can, just like we did last year when we had to increase the sub rate.
Okay.
And this is definitely a slide, next slide please, Monica, that you've seen before. In addition to just the general increase, there are market salary adjustments performed by compensation. There are stipend changes, reclassifications. All of that comes through GNI. But what we do is after I've identified all of those, we strip them out of GNI and put them into the comp plan, and that's why they're here. And so none of these have been approved because, again, GNI has been approved, units and other items, but all of that is stripped out of GNI to put into the proposed comp plan.
Okay.
And the next slide is just a recap of what we've done over the past few years. Most recent 2021-22 with a 3% increase, and the $1,000 retention payment that we did in March of 2022.
Okay.
Next slide, please. And finally, just to recap, looking at the numbers, dollars and cents of the cost of this particular plan, especially for the general fund. That's the fund that will be that we talk about the most. But with that 19.5 million and with the GNI, we're looking at just over $44 million that's being added to the general fund's expenditure side for 22-23 should all of this get approved.
And so the total compensation package, if I read that correctly, is 21.7
Across all funds, yes, ma'am.
across all funds.
Yes.
Okay, got
With
it.
the majority, of course, being in the general fund.
Right.
And that concludes the presentation, and certainly be happy to address any questions from the board.
Mr. Lopez.
Renee, thank you for the presentation. You know, I do have a couple of questions. You know, in hearing some of the comments on the public comments that were brought up today, I'm really having a hard time in accepting this proposal, only because I think and I'm going to use the example of Mrs. Valenzuela and Alfonso Valenzuela, you know, and then also because as one was a custodian and one was the cafeteria, and she just mentioned to me, or she just mentioned to us, that her compensation still hasn't met up to $15 an hour, and she's been employed for 20 years. In what we're proposing today, does that bring her up to a level of above $15 an hour?
Not knowing what level she is on now, I can tell you that.
Not knowing, okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Sorry.
we have so many different pay grades that, you know, each one would be specific to find out, for instance, well, is this going to bring us to a minimum of some dollar amount per hour? Remember, because there's a min, a mid, and a max. We'd have to go through, and comp would have to do that calculation for each and every one to say, where is the new minimum on every single pay grade for those employees that are like an hourly, for instance. So that
Right.
calculation would have to be done.
Could you be able to do that? I mean, is that, how time intensive is that?
Well, compensation can certainly do it because they have all the data. So that would be something that if the board wanted, I'm sure the superintendent would direct the HR to go in and make those calculations so we could present them to you.
Because-
Where all the new minimums would be.
Yeah. The only reason why I'm asking is because, I mean, this is information that has been brought up, and then you're hearing the story, you're hearing the actual, putting the face to the name, and to the position. I'm really having a hard time with it, and I understand that, sure, we're talking dollar amounts, and I know these are big dollars. And I'm also curious, and I know you mentioned it before, what is a percent in actual dollars? What is it in millions? What is that percent? Is it a 19.3 million? What does an actual percent look like for us?
Oh, you mean for every 1%?
Yeah, for every 1%, what does it equate to in a
Is it
dollar amount?
8 million? Yeah.
So it's about 8 million.
Yeah, so for every 1% general increase across the board in the general fund, you're looking at about roughly $8 million. That's how much it would cost the general fund to move everybody up on their respective midpoint by 1%.
So I think Dr. Woods was going to interject with
Hold on.
something.
I'm still not finished yet because
Oh, I'm sorry. I
got some
thought he
questions.
was going to comment on your question.
No, hold on. I'm still asking
Okay.
Renee a question. So with the 1 million, with the 8, with the 1%, which is about 8 million, and looking at trying to bring up a level of those auxiliary positions or positions that are below the minimum, and looking at that, I'd like to see something to that effect. Only because, I mean, in hearing the stories, I'm having a hard time, and I know we're having a difficult time this year, especially with inflation going up, gas, and cost of food going up. Looking at those type things that, they're not living on luxury. These are not luxury. The things that they're doing right now, these are groceries, minimum things just to keep their families sustainable. So I'd like to look at something like that, if that's allowable, to see about what another percentage would look like for those auxiliaries. I mean, I'm sorry, yeah, for custodians and teachers, bus drivers, because also we're looking at cost of insurance. Insurance went up. Looking at the cost of insurance, and especially bus drivers, they're having to pay their 12-month premium in 10 months. So that's less money that they're going to have at the end of the paycheck. So at their paycheck. So I'd like to see something to that effect, to where we can look at those. It would just make it a lot easier for me to accept this. I'm just having a hard time right now accepting this budget, and that's just me in hearing the stories that are going on, and hearing and putting the face to the name and to the position. This is really, I want to say we could do better. I want to say we can do better. If it's only 8 million, and we're going to go into we're going to go into our fund, I mean, it's, to me, that's me. If I have any more questions, I'll chime in again. Thank you.
Dr. Woods, before I call on Ms. Saldana, you had a comment to something.
I was just going to try to shed some light on Mr. Lopez's question with regard to folks making a particular dollar per hour. We actually looked at that a year ago, and so the number that I'll give you was true a year ago and was prior to the compensation package that was approved for this year. But when we looked at this issue a year ago, compensation calculated a cost for me of moving and only of moving folks to $15 an hour. It did not include dealing with any of the compression that kind of move in would create in a pay scale. But the move to $15 an hour for every single employee as a minimum set would have run about $12 million in recurring costs.
Okay, thank you.
And Brian, I'm sorry.
I was going to call on Miss Saldana.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Miss Saldana?
Dr. Barajas, I know I've only been on the board for a year, but I am appalled that someone has worked in our district for 20 years and they don't make $15 an hour. I don't know how we can live with that. So I just want to go on record to say we're not gonna hire people. They're paying $15 an hour at McDonald's.
I'm sorry, if there's going to be comments, I'd prefer that you just, if you would like to talk, if you just step outside and then come back in when you're finished.
I just feel like we need to do something. I realize that, I was with the other group, I was a teacher, but I never realized that our salary for our custodians and bus drivers and cafeteria workers was that low. And so
I've
I
only
just
been here 2 years. Give me some time to fix some things, okay? So
I understand that, but I just want to go on record that I agree with Mr. Lopez that I wish we can do something. It's not fair.
I do know, Ms. Chumley, I know you have your light on. I do know that as time has gone on, this particular board has always looked at market schedules and what the market pays. And I know that I don't think we've drawn this budget up without considering that and considering what other districts have done. So
And I understand that, but in the last 2.5 years, the market has changed dramatically, and we may have to do the same.
Ms. Chumley.
This is just tough. So let me ask that on that market piece. And I know that you sent us some stuff in Friday letter, Renee, and I'm not sure if that, I apologize because I'm not sure if that included kind of what we're looking at with bus drivers and custodians. On that, did you send us the information in Friday letter that, because we had asked for some examples, and I apologize.
Yeah,
I
if
don't
memory
remember,
serves, the question was
seeing that.
who falls under auxiliary, and we sent that list a month ago, I guess, of who actually, what positions are under the auxiliary. As Dr. Woods pointed out, you have people in the district, clerical type positions, which are not considered auxiliary, so they're not on the 4%. They are on the, if you want to consider it, the lower end of the pay scale, but they're not in that area considered to be auxiliary. They're in the other group, the 2% group at this point.
So when we talk about doing a market study, did we do the market study for custodians, for bus drivers, for, Brian, if you can help me on that? Did we do the market study in relation to our auxiliary positions as well?
Yes, ma'am. Every year we look at the market conditions that we're aware of and try to adjust if we can afford it to those market conditions. Went through a slide tonight that showed some of those adjustments.
I saw that.
Especially for instructional assistants in our special education areas. So that is done every year.
Okay. It just seems so insincere, but it's not. I don't think we will ever be able to pay our teachers and our bus drivers and our custodians and our cafeteria workers what you need to be paid because you're dealing with children. In saying that, so I'm going to I have a little bit different perspective on this, and I'll tell you why. Because Corinne and Gerald, when we hit a really bad period of time in our budget, the board had taken some actions, and even then we made that decision to not riff anyone. And so I want to bring that up so that so that y'all will understand what my feeling is. So when I look at what we have done, okay, so when I look at what we've done 2019-20, where we did a 4% and then we did a 3%, and then I look at 2021 when we didn't have any idea what our expenses or what the world was going to look like in education, we did no general increase. Then in 21-22, we came in at the 3%, and the general midpoint was 3, the auxiliary midpoint was 3.5. And each time when anyone would say, you know, why aren't you giving more, I felt that I could honestly say there's no one sitting on this board that doesn't want to pay our employees more. But what we have to look at is we have to look at not just this year, we have to look at next year and the year after that and the year after that. And where are we going to be? And I think that we have to look realistically at what our budget is right now and where we are anticipating it's going to be, because it is not looking good. And the way that I look at it is when we do a recurring cost, so let's say that we come in and we add an additional $8 million. It's not like we just take $8 million out of our ending fund balance now. That's $8 million next year, and that's $8 million the year after that. And what worries me is I'm not sure what our funding is going to look like from the state in the next biennium. I would love to say, oh, I have confidence that, you know, this is going to change and we will be in a better position. And I don't feel that way. And I just know that I don't ever want us to go through what we went through in 2011 again, where we were faced with choices of riffing our teachers. And we're the only school district, one of the few, that did not do that. And we didn't do that because we had been fiscally responsible up until that point. But even on that point, we took a risk on that because that could have very easily have gone the other direction. And we took a risk on doing that. And so, you know, the way that I feel about this is over the years, I truly believe that Dr. Woods and Dr. Barras looks to what is the very best salary increase that we can do to maintain our fiscal stability. And so I would very much love to give a higher salary increase, but I'm just not comfortable doing it because I'm very concerned of where we will be. And I think that we have to be fiscally responsible with this. I would like us to look at some of the, what Mrs. Velasquez, I believe, Valenzuela. I'm sorry if I had said about allowing some of our auxiliary workers to work in other positions during the summer. I would like to have us look at trying to find some solutions for our auxiliary workers to try to, and I will tell you, I have always been a proponent of doing a 40-hour week for bus drivers. We haven't gotten there yet, but I know we're working to try to find solutions with field trips and additional opportunities as well. So, Gerald, as much as I agree with you and Corinne, I don't think that I don't feel like I would be doing what is responsible to me as a trustee and doing my fiduciary responsibility, not only to our employees, to our district, and to our taxpayers and community, if I supported anything that was more than what is being recommended at this time. And I'd actually, and let's see how the rest of the board feels, but I'd actually like to move that we approve the compensation as recommended.
Thank you. We have, I know Ms. Saldana has a question, and I know Mr. Lopez as well. Ms.
I think the surprise that I had is that I'm not sure I understand slide number 8, because as I'm looking at it, I thought the minimum was $16.99. That was the impression that I got, but you're telling us no, that's not the minimum.
Well, this is a particular pay grade that was just used, randomly picked as an example of how we calculate that. So again, there are dozens of different pay grades, and
which pay grade was this? Do you know?
I couldn't tell you. I don't know. It was one of
many. And I think that's what shocked me, was that I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, okay, it's going to go to $17 an hour, so to speak. And then you said no, that it's completely different. This is just
this particular pay grade will, should the board approve,
right? But
not
but
all
obviously
pay grades.
A cafeteria worker is not on this pay grade, and I think that's where the shock came in. But thank you for clarifying.
Okay, Ms. Saldana, Mr. Lopez.
Thank you, Karen.
No comment.
You know, Brian, you mentioned about market pay, and when we look at positions and the studies go in reference to market pay and what's out there, what's the market paying, was inflation included in that? Basically, when you look at that, and then you look at the cost of what it costs to put gas in your car, to pay for basic fruits, which has gone up, groceries, things like that, and then we look at the increase in energy, right, with CPS, everything that these teachers, cafeteria workers, custodians, who we value most, they're having to pay for, even their property has gone up. The property value has gone up. So, when you're looking at all of that, I kind of find it hard to say, are we really, giving enough? And this is just me, Brian. I'm just talking this out with you, right? Was inflation considered in that?
So when we do a market analysis, it isn't based on whether there's inflation or not inflation, because that changes over time. What it's based on is what are people actually paying to every grade of employee,
right,
whether that's custodian or a teacher or a high school principal.
Right.
So that's the market analysis that gets done that determines what we recommend in compensation. That's true every year, not just this year in these kind of unusual circumstances. One thing I would say, I've heard a lot about inflation in the last 2 or 3 months, and nobody doubts that it's real. We certainly feel it in our expenditure side of our budget as well, where we do not feel inflation, just like we haven't felt the lack of inflation in the last 10 or 12 years, is on the revenue side.
Right.
Inflation does nothing to change the revenue of the school district whatsoever. There is no factor in the funding formula that adjusts a school's revenue from the state of Texas based on whatever the rate of inflation.
Right. No, and I understand that, because I think it's when I talk about inflation, I talk about what the take-home pay is for that teacher, for that custodian, that bus driver, what it is that they're going to have at the end of the month or every 2 weeks that they're going to have for groceries. Because like I said, that 2% of inflation that has increased, and it's gone up, and it's going to continue to go up, and it's projecting to go up. Those are things that I'm looking at in saying, okay, how can we make it sustainable for our employees? And so we're reviewing that. That's what I was curious to know, only because that way it helps me understand where our thinking was on this. What I also, and Melissa, I understand, You know, when you talk about 2011 and when you talk about, you know, we didn't rift anybody. Yes, those were times, and I understand it. And I think everybody in the room, every teacher in the district will appreciate that. But we're hitting those same times now. But I think we've got to look at that and say, yes, that was then, but this is now. And we got to look at it and say, okay, how can we continue with what we have and trying to be, you know, really targeted on as far as, you know, positions and increases in salaries. I think we got to really look at that because, you know, to me, I mean, if we're thanking our employees, this means this is showing it. And I know people may not say, hey, well, that's not enough, but we're gonna do the best that we can. I think this still requires us to have more dialogue, to have more models presented in my mind in looking at this and saying, is this really the best that we can do? Is this really the best that we can do? And really come back and say, hey, to all our employees and say, yes, you know what, we did it. We really worked it out. Does that make sense? I mean, so I want to, you know, it's not that I want to be oppositional. I want to be fair. I want to be fair. You know, I just can't support this. I cannot support this.
Mr. Blunt?
Yeah, I'll try not to be repetitive because I think y'all really had a really good discussion in both and sort of discuss all the different angles to it. You know, one thing I will be repetitive. I think definitely agree with the comments been stated in terms of there's no doubt we all agree more needs to be done. Okay, there's no doubt on that. I think y'all know last time what I had stated is it's unfortunate the state and others haven't really said, hey, what should our employees be making as opposed to each year talking about incremental, et cetera. But, you know, we talked about that last time to some degree, and that doesn't exist. But at some point, I hope we get there. I guess, and I hadn't realized, and maybe Karen also, but I know Melissa and I know years ago, going back to the time period you're talking about, we went in very, very detailed. So we looked at every single one of these auxiliary every single one. So we had an understanding then. I mean, we knew what food service, what their min-max, and we'd walk through, and et cetera. And I just realized, I guess, Gerald and Corinne, and maybe, I'm not sure about Karen, hasn't really maybe seen that level of detail. So I think that's something that we should really, whether it be now, et cetera, everybody should have that education to catch us all up, to look at everything. And it took some time, but we had to do it. Remember, back then, it definitely took some time. I think that's a value to see the whole picture in that particular regard. The only other thing I had that I was also wondering about is that July 8th date. I don't know how pressing that date is. So it's sort of a question I have is you know, I do have that realistic, to be fair to everybody. You know, are we up against that per se? Is that really, or I'll just ask that question.
Okay. I think it's unrealistic to assume that we would come back with that between now and July the 8th. Right. July the 8th, as was stated, is a statutory date.
Oh, that's right.
That allows folks to focus on teaching contracts to move from one system to another at that time. That's why that date is special. It does not apply to other positions outside of the teaching certified ranks.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have here.
Thank you, Mr. Blunt. So I've looked at this budget real carefully. I've spent a lot of time with Dr. Woods, spent some time with Dr. Barajas, and we are looking at a $75 million deficit for this year. Again, I mentioned to you, for those people who would say, well, y'all just overestimate your expenditures. Well, we pretty much hit it on the money last year. So with that in mind, $75 million hit in our fund balance. Do we have $75 million in our fund balance? Yep. What happens next year? And then the year after. And quite honestly, if we approve anything higher than this $21 million, we add an extra $8 million somewhere, or we add an extra $12 million somewhere, then okay, so that deficit then goes up to 87. So as a trustee, how do I live with that? I'm looking at the structure that we have right now, and I got to tell you, though we will never be able to pay our staff as much as they deserve. It appears to me that we are still one of the highest. Our compensation structure is highest in this particular area, and I feel like I can hold my head up regarding that. What I can't do, though, is if I support an increased compensation package that would increase our deficit. And then it's real. Dr. Woods has talked about this fiscal cliff that we're heading for. You don't have to look at it. The state is currently reimbursing us for our what they did in House Bill 3, where we have to lower our maintenance and operation tax rate as values went up. So the state is compensating for us. They're compensating because of increased property values. But what they haven't said is we now have a constitutional amendment that passed that lowered our homestead, that increased our homestead exemption. So they've said, state said, hey, no worries, school districts, we're going to compensate you for that. Okay, fine. So then the over 65, we also had an opportunity for those people over the age of 65 for them to lower their cap. Well, here's what happens. We've already lowered the maintenance and operations side of the tax rate 12 cents in the last 3 years. And this estimate for this year appears to be 6 cents. So that's 18 cents, in which it's possible that they're going to be retroactive on that with their over 65. I'm not here to debate whether the over 65 it's great or not. It's what happened. And the state said, okay, we're going to compensate you for that. Where's the state going to get the money? Because I got to tell you, their revenue, they've had an increased revenue stream the last few years because of all the stabilization funds that have come to them from the federal government. But there are no more stabilization funds coming. So, and they've had some discussions on the backside. I know Dr. Woods has been involved in some of those conversations at the state level. But nobody knows where they're going to get that money. And so that's exactly what happened several years ago when, as Ms. Chumley said, I was on this board at the time, and we were looking at over a $60 million deficit. We were going to get $60 million less. And so we were able to, by attrition, decrease the number of positions that we had by over 1,000 employees. That was a hit. But we didn't have to lay anybody off. I don't want to be in that situation when this thing comes around the corner, especially with the deficit that we already have. So I really believe that I know this is hard, but I really believe that we need to look at the compensation that has been presented to us. And I'm concerned if we go any further with this, then we need to figure out ways to cut our budget, because 87% of our budget right now is salaries. So if we're going to increase compensation, then where are we going to make up for that? I'm just saying, where are we going to make up for that? So that's my concern. If we go further with this, if we increase, then we need to look at how we're going to save the money. And we don't approve the way the state has it set up, our budget with our compensation. That's just not our schedule. I'm sorry, I've talked too long. I think Ms. Chumley?
So Gerald, I appreciate your remarks, and I know that I know that it's like, okay, I'm talking about what happened, 10 years ago. But what I'm seeing, and Karen can explain it a whole lot better than I can, but what I am seeing is we are following the same path of what we had then. And I think those things and I agree on the inflation. It's hard for all of us with the food and the gas. Oh my gosh. But those types of things, that are affecting us personally are going to affect us as a school district as well. So we've budgeted within our budget an idea of what our fuel costs would be, but that's speculative. I mean, we're trying to make our best guesstimate for that. And and I know that this discussion is hard, and I know that it makes it harder because of the times that we have had. However, I trust our superintendent, and I trust our deputy finance, and there is no reason why this board would want to give you less than what we think that we can give you and maintain the financial stability of this district. That's not what we're here for. And that's not what we would do. And I think that, and I know that there was a comment about overestimating expenditures. When I went back and looked, because I was curious on that, because there was a previous way that our budget had been given to us, and then Dr. Barajas has a different way of doing it, but neither one of them were wrong. It's just a different way of doing it. But I think that we are trying to get as close as possible with so many variables that it's extremely hard. But I think we're trying very hard to say what our estimated budget is. We want to try to get as close to what our actual budget is. And if we're looking at a $73 million deficit right now, and you saw within, I don't think it's within this budget presentation, but it was in one previously, we're already looking at other ways to be able to increase our revenue, or to not increase our revenue, it's reduce our expenses on this. So I truly think that this is the best that we can do for now. And I think that last year we looked at a retention bonus, and I think that there was lots of argument about that would not really make a big difference, but I think that it did in a couple of factors. I think morale was one of them. And I think that that's, I think you can trust this board if we see that we have additional funding that we can put into our employees' pockets, that we will come back and look at that. But at this moment, I don't think I'm doing my job to just arbitrarily increase. And I think that some of those districts that y'all mentioned that have taken those massive salary increases. In fact, there was one district in Texas whose whole discussion about salary increases, there was no discussion about budget. There was no discussion about how was this going to be paid. And so, I'm not going to address what other districts do, but I think that we need to do what's best for Northside. And I truly, in my heart, feel that that's what we're doing now. So.
Okay, thank you.
So you've got a motion.
I know we do have a motion. I'm not
the-
sure we're finished discussing. Mr. Lopez?
Thank you.
Oh, no, but I didn't mean it like that, Karen. I said,
Oh, no,
we just have a motion out there, so we actually will need a second at some point.
Is there a second? We can do that without finishing
Can I still
discussion.
get my?
Go ahead and
can I
finish
still-
the
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead and finish our
Okay, thank you.
discussion.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Brian, I'm not, and Melissa, thank you for, this is the dialogue that we needed as a board, and this is what the public needs to see this, because this is good stuff, right? At the end of the day, this is what they need to see, the varied opinions and ideas of what's going on as a board and the interaction with the superintendent. I will tell you, yes, you are absolutely correct. We do have a fiduciary obligation to protect the interest of the district and the taxpayers. But when I look at that, I look at the majority of the taxpayers in our district are our teachers. A lot of these are our teachers. A lot of these are our custodians. A lot of these are our, residents in our district. Because, I look at that from that perspective to be able to say, look, we're helping we're helping our community. And then look at it from an economical perspective. When we are the largest district, the fourth largest in the state, we're the largest in Bexar County, and the amount of income, the amount of, or the percentages that we give to our residents, that's more dollars that goes into the economy, that goes into the grocery stores, into the gas stations, if you look at it from that perspective, right? So that's how I'm looking at it. I'm looking at them being able to afford childcare, maybe, because that may go up, things like that. The 1%, $8 million is not going to bankrupt us. It's not going to, we've approved deficit budgets in the past, and we knew that we were going to come up. I mean, we always recovered. All I'm saying is if we can come up with a 1% increase or something to that effect, can we look at it? Can we go back and revisit it? Is what I'm asking. And I know we're committed to July 8th, but I just cannot support this at this time. I just cannot support this, especially the time that we're going through right now.
I've lost track of the lights. Was there any other comment before we move forward?
I just have just one is, I want to use an example. I want to use last year as an example. When we looked at what the original compensation was, and we went back to look at, was there additional monies that we could do? Did we have some room in that? And Gerald, we did that. It's not, again, that we don't want to give a salary increase, but I think that we had looked at that last year and we found that, and we came back with that additional increase. But in talking to Dr. Woods and talking to Dr. Barajas, I don't think that money is there right now. I really don't. I do not think that money is there in our budget. And when we talk about just 1% is $8 million, that's going to take us to what, 81 million? That will be our deficit. And so we take that additional money. So let's say that we're able to get expenses down and we don't end up. And Renee, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I'm just going to say roughly, say we get to 50 million as a deficit. We still have to take that out of our ending fund balance. And then that's a recurring cost. That means the next year. And so I kind of look at it, Gerald, from a very simplistic point, because it can be explained much broader, that if I have my household budget and I know how much is in my savings and I overspend and I'm going to have to pull that from my savings, then, I can't keep doing that or I will not have any savings left. And that's because I'm retired and not generating a regular income like I did in the past. And I look at that the same way, is we know what our revenue is going to be from the state. We are doing an estimate of what we anticipate our enrollment, and out of that enrollment, our ADA, the percentage of students that actually are going to come back, are going to be here every day, which generates our ADA. So we're, and that's something that we're going to be working on. We're going to be working on trying to get better attendance and, getting our kids back more so than even what we have done in this past year. So, but I'm just saying, for right now, with what we are seeing, guys, I'm not comfortable asking for more at this point. So there's a motion out there and we need a second if we're going to move any further on it.
Okay. And your motion was to accept the
the compensation plan as presented.
Is there a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Again, any other discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign.
No.
Okay. All right. Motion carries. This was tough. We are going to continue to look at the budget. Thank you for being here. Next item on the agenda lost my agenda.
Wait, I've
No,
lost
we don't
mine.
have anything. We're gonna, under superintendents, the next item on the agenda is
And I've
under,
lost mine.
the next item on the agenda is under superintendents. We're gonna skip future agenda items right now. And let's go to, that was A, let's go to B, TASBY advocacy resolutions. I don't know who's presenting this. Would this be Mr. Galindo, Miss Rasty? Is Miss Rasty here?
It's actually Dr. Woods and Miss Frosty.
Okay. Dr. Woods.
Yes, ma'am. In your attachment are a number of advocacy resolutions that we're actually, if we're going to submit any, are required to bring to the board. At this time, we actually got an extension from TASBY in order to bring them to this meeting. TASBY is kind of starting fresh with advocacy resolutions, so there are a number here that you will recognize that we've had in the past that we believe are still relevant. And then there are some that are new and extremely relevant given kind of the times that we're in. Speaking of inflation in the next hour, so there's some in there with regard to increasing revenue for schools to deal with inflation if the state is in a place to be able to afford it as they find themselves currently. And so there are a number of resolutions. I believe Kelly Rasty's in the room, can answer questions. I can also answer questions in that regard, but we are up against a little bit of a timeline crunch with regard to getting these submitted.
Miss Rasty, did you want to make any comments, or otherwise I have a few? Oh, okay, thank you. So y'all have seen TASBY resolutions before. This is a record number for us. We are historically the district that has the most advocacy resolutions that we present to the TASBY at this particular time before a legislative session. I will tell you that I appreciate the work of Kelly on this, because I think she was given this task to go forward, and she came back with a whole lot of material, and thank you for that, and thank you for your energy on this. Just for context to my fellow board members, when TASBY looks at resolutions, there are never any more than maybe 30 districts at the most that ever submit resolutions. So yes, ma'am. So we're very well represented. This particular group of resolutions and the district rationale for that will go to the TASBY board. Well, first it'll go to the TASBY Legislative Committee, and then it'll be looked at by the TASBY board. And then we'll see it again in the meeting at TASBY, where the TASBY advocacy agenda is developed. I'd also thank Corinne Saldana, who has been our Region 20 Black representative. Gerald did this last year, and I know that you've had several meetings already and have come up with the TASBY priorities. These particular resolutions, when we approve them, TASBY staff will look through them and look through them in relationship to other school districts that have presented resolutions. They may suggest that we combine resolutions with other school districts or otherwise, and those particular comments will come back to normally the superintendent and then board president, and in this case will our LAC representative and with Kelly. So just so the board knows that these resolutions, if approved tonight, may be adjusted or tweaked a little bit depending on TASBY's comments, but it is up to us whether we want to combine our resolutions with somebody else or if we decide to tweak them. So that happens every year. So just so you know the process. So I don't know, is there any questions for Kelly specifically about any of the resolutions?
They're pretty intense. You did a good
We discussed this at our last committee meeting, policy and intergovernmental relations meeting, in depth. So, okay, is there a motion? Okay.
It's been a while since we talked about these. And I didn't make policy.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm trying to think. I'm just catching up on it just real quick, Karen, on that piece of it.
Ms. Saldana?
Most of these are the ones that we talked about in our Region 20. And except that I think Kelly has gone into greater detail than we did. But almost every one of these are part of what we're going to move forward.
Oh, with the LAC.
So, yes. So I feel like she's included, I think, almost everything that we had.
Okay, there was just,
Not intentionally. That was, she didn't have those
No.
she didn't have all those priorities. This was, these
That's-
were resolutions.
Yeah,
that
that's
we've
why
had.
I'm impressed, because that was very much what Region 20 was feeling. The representatives at that meeting, most of the ones Kelly has are the ones we came up with.
Ms. Chunley?
okay, Brian, you're going to have to help me on this one. So we had talked about, in fact, I was supposed to meet with Senator Menendez in relation to the change. There's one word that needs to be changed in, it's not the Student Code of Conduct. It's in relation to the THC issue. And it was, what we were talking about, because we're not talking about changing, state law. Someone had asked about that, but that there's one word in our policy that says that we must, I believe, and we were talking about changing it to shall or may, so that those students, we would have the ability to be able to review and determine the appropriate action. So let me go back to that. So in our policy right now, if a student has THC, then it's supposed to be an automatic expulsion, and they're arrested and they have to go to juvenile court. And so there's some students that we have found that, I'll just give you an example. A young woman who was drawn into a conversation on Twitter with an adult that took advantage of this and provided the vape that had THC in it. Student really had no understanding that having THC is not the same as having a marijuana cigarette, that there's very much different punishments, but we wanted the ability to be able to discipline our own students and not have to expel them on a first offense for that. And so, Brian, if I'm not mistaken, there was just that one word in the policy, in the requirement from TEA, that would allow us then to put kids in our, it's not ISS, our alternative school, and not have to expel them.
Yeah, there's two issues at play, and I think what we've got to decide, and if Kelly and I are going to write resolutions, which I don't disagree with at all, there's two issues. Both of them are actually in the law. So Chapter 37 of the Education Code does require that a child caught with THC, even a small amount, even first offense, is expelled from the school district. So that's one issue. The other is on the criminal side. And I think ours may not be the space to deal with the criminal side as much as it is the school. discipline side, where we would have the discretion if we thought it was more appropriate for the child to discipline them in another way.
And that was what we had said, that we weren't going to deal, and we weren't going to deal with the criminal piece of it. We're not trying to change, but we want to change that one word from shall to may, I guess, in the education code to allow us to have that discretion in relation to how we handle these kids. And so I would like to see a resolution go forward in relation to that.
If it's the will of the board, we can craft that very quickly.
Do we still get ADA from there if they go to alternative? We lose it, right?
Well, they go because you can't you can't
Mr.
expel a
Lopez,
student
excuse
to
me, can you
the
put your mic on, please?
you can't expel a student to the street, so they go to the JJAEP, the Juvenile
okay.
Justice and
So
Alternative
then we lose
Education.
dollars when they go there, right?
That I'm not sure. Brian?
Dr. Woods, can you please answer Mr. Lopez's question?
Is the question, do we collect ADA on a student who is assigned to the JJAEP?
Yes. That's the
We
question.
do. Now, that said, if the student is assigned there for a mandatory reason, the state covers the cost. If the student's assigned there for a discretionary reason that we chose as a staff, then that cost falls on the district. So while we receive funding for that child, we are paying the JJA to provide service.
Well, and then the other piece of that I believe that we were actually notified by the JJAEP that just like we're having problems with getting teachers, the JJAEP is having problems getting teachers. And I think there was actually a conversation in relation to it'd be better if we could keep our kids, but with that, the wording in the education code, we can't. And so I would like to have us have a resolution that talks to that. Because Kelly, that was something I haven't had a chance to come talk to you about yet, but that I had already talked to Representative Lopez and Senator Menendez in relation to trying to draw up some kind of legislation in relation to that. So I move that we add a Northside advocacy resolution concerning the, how would we say it? Concerning the the mandatory expulsion of students with THC, in possession of THC. I don't know, Brian, y'all will have to figure out
Ms.
the wording.
Rusty, you came up to the mic. Did you have?
I just wanted to clarify that we are hoping with the extension on the deadline to turn these in to TASBY to actually send them tonight. So I just want to make sure that I have the verbiage exactly as intended.
Okay.
And I think you were going there, so I'm taking notes on what you're thinking.
I'm just thinking that we
Well, can you work with Dr. Woods? I know that because
Yeah.
we're gonna,
We can take care of that.
and you could still send that tomorrow,
Okay.
early tomorrow morning.
Okay.
But we do need a motion for the rest of the, Mr. Blunt?
No, what I was going to say, Melissa, because you started making, I guess you started making a motion. Do you want to make
How
a
about if I
motion
make
for
a
all and
motion
then
for
add
all
that
of
to
it
it?
and add
then
that?
Yeah.
So I move approval of I withdraw my previous motion. I move approval of the Northside Advocacy resolutions to include a resolution in relation to punishment for students in possession of THC.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. And Ms. Rest, you have the other resolutions? You said I had to sign them. Are they somewhere?
We have them ready to go.
When we go into executive session, then we'll take care of that.
Yeah. And I can work on drafting what you're talking about right now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda, special facilities naming. I don't know who wants to kick that off. Dr. Woods? Or is somebody going to speak to it? Or these are,
I'm happy to, Ms. Freeman.
Okay.
We actually, during the summer, the the board comes together, and if there have been any special facility nominations, we decide whether any of those are going to be considered. Tonight, we bring two that we understood the board was interested in considering in an open meeting.
So we discussed these, whether we would consider them bringing to the board at board retreat, and we had agreed on bringing these two. Any comments from Ms. Chumley?
I move approval of naming the special facilities, the university, the clinic that we're creating, that we're building on the Jones campus, to name it after Shirley Schreiber. And I'd like to give some background on that. When we were naming elementary schools, our nurses came to us and requested that Shirley Schreiber's name be considered for an elementary school. And when we talked to our nurses and explained that we would be building a health clinic, they said that they felt that that would be more appropriate in relation to a facility that would honor Shirley and one that she would have been proud to have her name on and represent. And I think that when you look at anyone who you name for facility, you don't just use just one short period of their life. You look at what they have done from an overall standpoint, from long term, that you look at that. And I think when we do that, that Shirley truly is deserving. I go back to one time when I was PTA council president, I worked with Shirley in working with getting some legislation in relation to the number of nurses and legislation in relation to RNs. And she was just a huge proponent and fighter for our nurses, and I just think it would be really appropriate. And then the second facility is the Clark High School competitive gym, and that's naming it for Kevin Hamilton. Coach Hamilton was a Northside coach who recently passed away. Who was a Clark student, a Clark coach. He was an athletic director in Northside, and Kevin told the best stories. I know that's not a reason to name a gym after him, but he told the best stories, and he loved kids.
I hope somebody's recorded those best stories, because I didn't know him very well. I knew of him, and I have heard that he had some wonderful stories. So,
He kept pieces of paper whenever he heard a story or a teacher or a student or someone said something. He wrote down what that was and dated it and kept it in a folder. And so he had all this history. And it, anyway, I think that it would be great for for those things to be shared with the board. He was truly an amazing person who touched kids' lives.
so Ms. Chumley, was that in a form of a motion, or are you going to make a motion to?
I started out moving.
Right. For
that we named the special facilities, the school clinic at Anson Jones for Shirley Schreiber, and the Clark High School competitive gym for Kevin Hamilton.
Okay. We have a motion and a second for the naming of these two facilities. Mr. Blunt?
No, I just Shirley's reputation was just tremendous. So beyond even the nurses, the whole community. So I knew Shirley's reputation without a doubt. So definitely support, and from the feedback we've given on Kevin, agree also.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Anybody else? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries, and that's very nice. Are we going to, I don't know how we're going to alert families, but who's going to do that? Dr. Woods?
Back to your question, in the case of Clark, we'll alert the campus. Actually, the nomination that we have came from the campus principal.
Right.
So we'll
Came
alert
from
the
Steve.
campus, and then we'll go through a process of getting the name right and putting it on the gym. And I'm sure we'll have perhaps a ceremony somewhere along.
Okay.
Brian, it would probably be really good to let Rodney Wilson talk to Steve Zimmerman, but let Rodney Wilson call his wife.
Yep. As a matter of fact, I can text that as we speak.
Okay.
Okay. So I'd like to skip item number D. We can pull that to the bottom. So we've now skipped A and D. Let's go to item number E, trustee participation in TASBY. So I know that there was a trustee, there is a trustee that at one time was considering applying for leadership TASBY. I don't know if that's still going to happen or not, but just in case, so the deadline for that submission is July the 1st. My suggestion is, in case somebody changes their mind on that, this item agenda, I'm sorry, is about us, the Northside, covering the expenses for travel for that. TASBY pays other expenses if this person were accepted. So my suggestion would be to just go ahead and approve this. Should somebody decide to change their mind, at least they have that option of going ahead and sending that in. So is there a motion?
Yeah, I move approval. And by the way, I saw we had 9 minutes left in this meeting according to that computer. So speed this up.
Yeah, that was something that came up. I think
Brian,
Dr.
are you
Woods
sending us a message?
Dr. Woods goes off Zoom in 9 minutes. Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second? Maybe there was a second. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second to approve. Any trustee on this board that wants to go ahead and apply to be on TASBY, should they be accepted, then the district would cover the travel expenses. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay, now we have extended COVID. Let's go to extended COVID leave. Who's speaking to that item? Dr. Woods, Mr. Galindo, who would that be?
I'll take that one, Ms. Freeman.
Okay.
So
Before your time's up.
The board will recall that we have like 3 or 4 iterations of this resolution to the board over the last 27 months. And that is for the district to recognize the challenges associated with COVID and to add some additional leave for employees who do test positive or are caring for a minor child who does. In the past, we have differentiated that leave based on vaccine status. This particular version of this resolution, which would continue extended COVID leave from July through the end of December 2022, does not differentiate between vaccinated and unvaccinated for several reasons, most of which are practical. The status of the vaccination seems to, in as great a way these days, at least with what we've dealt with the last 2 variants and subvariants, determine whether someone becomes ill or tests positive from the virus. And so our recommendation for this next 6 months that would obviously need to then be revisited as we close out the calendar year, whether it's necessary or not to continue, would be to extend up to 5 days of additional leave for the 2022-23 school year for folks who meet that criteria that I mentioned earlier in my remarks.
Okay. Any questions?
No, I just have one. So this will take us through December, and then in December, we'll have to revisit it to see if that we extend it again for the spring,
Correct.
right?
Yes, ma'am.
On that. Because I just, I think it's here to stay with us forever. And I just, I don't know. I completely agree with us doing this. I just don't know what we'll bring. So I guess we'll see in December kind of where we are and make a decision from that point. But I move approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second regarding the extended COVID leave. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. Now we're going to go back to committee ratification. So in your blue folder, Monica has printed up your request for the committee that you would like to be on. Please look over that. If your name is not on it, remember, if your name is not on under a committee, that does not mean that you cannot go. These meetings are posted. Anybody can go to any of the committee meetings, but these are the people that when it's time for a committee meeting, the chair of the committee and the staff person associated with that committee will attempt to put it at a time convenient for most of the members on that committee. So to everybody here, I would encourage you that when you do schedule those committees, please at least, certainly that it has to be convenient for the chair and the staff, and then maybe a couple other additional times. Please send those to the rest of the committee members and see which one that most members can attend, and then make that decision. Regarding chairs of the committee, I was thinking that at this time that we would change some of our committee chairs around, because we've had some committee chairs in the same position for a while. And so I started talking to people and then realized that there are some people that choose to chair a committee for the simple reason of it's convenient because of the length of the committee, because of the day. Well, it means some people cannot, depending on the amount of time that can be taken off and such, as well as the traditional time of the day and et cetera. So after I had spoken to Joseph and Carol before they left, and then the rest of you at a later time, what I'm suggesting we do right now, at least for this year, is to continue with the same committee chairs that we have. And if that's okay with everybody here, I know it's okay with those that are not here. Is that okay with everyone? So with that, we need to ratify this. So it is I don't know that it requires, we can do it by acclamation, my assumption.
Now, I was the technology chair, but my name's not on there. So
Yeah, I don't think that the chairs aren't, your name's not even here. So yes, ma'am, you need to put that on there.
So what happened is I looked at the sheets that y'all turned in earlier, and if your name wasn't under that one, then I didn't include it on the new one.
Ooh, okay, so we had.
Put me down on technology, and I'll continue to chair it.
So everybody here, are you on the committees that you signed up for? Okay.
So will Gerald be the finance chair?
Yes. And Carol will still be policy and intergovernmental relations, and Joseph for academics. Okay.
Leroy, we're going to have to change times.
Okay, you have policy is Joseph or Carol?
Carol.
Okay, you have Joseph.
Yeah, I'm sorry, these were
marked as the way they would have liked to, like they wanted to be considered for the chair. So the ones that indicated they'd like to be for chair were made with an asterisk for that committee. So when I wrote this, it was just the rough of where each person had put their names and if they wanted to be a chair.
so that will reflect this. I'll get with you and I'll reflect the what we've discussed tonight. So is everybody okay with that? Let's just to have a motion. Is there a motion?
I move that we ratify, or how about just by general consent? I move by general consent, we
It's fine.
ratify the chair members and chairman.
tired. The board committee chairs and chairman.
Okay. All right, everybody okay? All right. So now, I guess blue folders again regarding dates for possible next retreat.
That's a tough one.
And that includes EISO. Is that what I'm looking at, Dr. Woods? And so if you'll get with, please, continuing of retreat dates, does this include E EISO?
No, ma'am. That'll have to come at a later date.
Okay.
In August, which is why we were trying to get the next meeting, the continuation of the retreat, which we don't think we'll need 3 hours, but wanted to reserve it in case.
19th,
And so you can see those 3 days back to back.
Okay.
Suggested dates.
So y'all please look at what dates that you can, check them off, and if you can leave them with Ms. Guerra tonight, please do so, or do that at a convenient time, and she'll get with Joseph and Carol when they come back. And then EISO dates, so I thought I saw those were in Friday letter.
They were in Friday letter. It's just kind of food for thought to put it on y'all's calendar.
Well, let's try to do that right now. So, Monica, if you'll get those while we're in executive session and then give us those, excuse me?
Yes, ma'am. I have them ready for y'all, so I can get them to y'all in executive session.
Okay, and then we can go ahead and check them off and then give them to you if we have them tonight.
That's perfect.
Okay, thank you. And then I think we're down to future items on the agenda, if I'm looking at this right. Dr. Woods?
Yes, ma'am. Just a reminder to the board that we do not have a called meeting in July. We will have at least 2 meetings in August as we go through the budget finalization process. We haven't decided if that first meeting in August is going to be necessary or not. I need to have some conversation with staff before we're ready to say that. But the July date is set, and then obviously the regular August meeting is set as well.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay. The Board of Trustees on June 28th, 2022, beginning at, let's take a 5-minute recess. At 9:20 p.m. we'll convene and close meeting in accordance with Texas Government Code Section 551.071, 551.072, 073, 074, 076, 082, and 084. And let's meet in Dr. Woods's office. It's already set up for us to communicate with him in his office, so we're going to meet in there. And then because he is not here physically in person, we are going to postpone the conversation regarding superintendent evaluation and superintendent contract. Okey doke. Beginning at 9:54 p.m. We'll convene an open meeting. Is there a motion?
I move that we accept the recommendations for administration
The appointments?
appointments.
There's a motion to accept, okay, as discussed in executive session. A motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And then, is there another motion?
Madam President, I move that, well, this is for the possible sale? Text that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I move that the following resolution be approved and adopted by the board. And this would be the following language. Resolved that the superintendent and/or his designee is hereby authorized to consummate the sale to TxDOT of an approximate 0.2359 acre tract of land on FM 1560, which is currently part of the Randall Fields Elementary School campus, and the subject of eminent domain proceeding initiated by TxDOT for the purchase price and term accountable to the superintendent in his sole discretion, and the president of the Board of Trustees is hereby authorized to execute a deed conveying such property to TxDOT or his designee.
So we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second on the floor regarding the eminent domain proceedings. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And unless there's any objections, the board is ending its meeting and will adjourn at 9:55 p.m. on June 28, 2022.
Great.
Thank you all.
Good job.
Thank you, Dr. Woods. Hope you feel better.
Since 3 o'clock. Leroy, he hasn't had power
Yep, you
since
too.
3.
You gonna fix it, Leroy? 3 o'clock.
Since 3 o'clock.